We already did the money for lunch. Lunch will be provided. It's going to be a working lunch around noon, and so we'll just stop whenever that comes in and let everybody get lunch, and then we'll go back to work. But by that time, y'all will be running this thing, not me, and I'll just be sitting here listening. I should tell you that this meeting is being webcast and recorded, and so that everything you say and do is out there in the world for everybody to see. And so just depending on your level of appropriateness, I guess you can react however you want to react. I'm not going to tell you. But those decisions are yours. You probably want to mute your phones, please. And with that said, I should mention Elizabeth. Elizabeth, who has been in communication with many of y'all, she is a program director, and she is the staff person that is ultimately in charge of this committee and will facilitate the process from our side or from our agency as this group moves forward. She's not feeling well today. We actually have her upstairs in a closet right now, but I don't know if she'll come down and join us in a little bit or not. But Rex Peebles, the Assistant Commissioner for Academic Quality and Workforce, I think will join us soon. So when he comes in, maybe we can stop and let him introduce himself. And I guess I should introduce myself. I've met some of y'all at the conference sometime last fall or last winter. But I'm Gary Tomerlin. I'm Deputy Assistant Commissioner of Workforce in the Academic Quality and Workforce Division, which really we do all the curriculum stuff is what it more or less boils down to. And then from that, I think that's kind of most of the background stuff that we need to talk about. Maybe from here, if we go around and let everybody introduce themselves, and then we'll come back and we're going to fairly quickly get into coming up with co-chairs and a recording secretary, because like I said, this is y'all's committee more than anything else, and let y'all get down to the work and the conversations, and then I'm going to be watching a football game on my phone or something. But anyway, if we just want to go around this way, please, sir. I'm sorry, as I probably should have told you, the cameras track the microphones, and so please turn your microphone on, and then also probably just as importantly is probably turn your microphone off. And the microphones are supposed to be sensitive enough to where they're positioned. You can actually talk, because I mean you can see I can hear myself being broadcast in the speakers behind me, which is actually annoying, but that's a different conversation. So you don't really have to move the microphones back and forth, but okay. Thanks, sir.
Melinda Imthern, Dallas County Community College District, Eastfield College, Professor of Choral and Vocal Music. I'll be sniffling, but it's just allergies. I'm not contagious.
I'm Robert Hansen. I'm Regents Professor of Voice and Opera at West Texas A&M University, where I'm also the Director of the School of Music.
I'm Mark Bougie, Texarkana College, Music Composition, Theory, Choir.
Wayne Barrett, Sam Houston State University. I'm the Associate Dean in College of Fine Arts and Mass Comm and Associate Professor of Music.
I'm Steve Weber from Amarillo College. I'm Chair of the Music Department and Director of Choral Activities.
I'm Mary Ellen Cavett from Texas State University, and I am a Professor of Music Education for Instrumental Music Ed and Associate Director of the School of Music.
I'm Jeannie Johnson. I'm Chair of Music and Dance at Kilgore College.
David Scott, Professor of Music and Head of the Music Department at Texas A&M University Commerce.
I'm Dan Kiley. I'm the Director of Music at Howard College in Big Spring.
Susan Harvey, Department Chair and Associate Professor of Music.
I'm Cindy Bridges, and I'm the Chair of the Department of Music at Del Mar College.
I'm Mary Lynn Fletcher, and I'm the choral director and kind of all-around flunky at Victoria College in Victoria.
I'm Celinda Hallbauer at Central Texas College, and I'm Professor of Music and Music Program Coordinator.
I'm Kathy Mayer. I'm the Interim Dean of Arts and Sciences at the Chair of Fine and Performing Arts and Assistant Professor of Music with a vocal and choral emphasis at Northeast Lakeview College.
Darren Hoskison. I am Associate Professor of Music Theory at Texas A&M University, Kingsville.
I'm Sharon O'Leary, and I am Assistant Department Chair, Choral, Vocal, Theory, Jack of all trades at South Texas College in McAllen.
I'm Charles Lineberger. I coordinate theory and composition at University of Texas at El Paso. I'm also the undergraduate music advisor.
I'm Michael Tusa, University of Texas at Austin, Butler School of Music. I'm a professor, and I work in the Division of Musicology, Ethnomusicology.
I'm Philip Lowe at Hill College, Hillsboro, starting my 41st year this year at that college, so been around the block a few years.
And last but not least, I'm Kurt Gilman, Chair of Music Department at Lamar University, Associate Professor, Director of Orchestral Activities.
Okay. You have a packet of materials in front of you. And by the way, this is Rex over here. So when he comes to the table, we'll let him introduce himself in just a minute. But as I said, we have got started. We just did welcome and introductions. And I think it should be fairly obvious to you, but just in case it's not, the committee is balanced to where university representation and community college representation. It should be that both segments of higher ed are represented in voices at the table. And then I guess I should say that you're really not representing your institution, you're representing the state of Texas and the field of music as a whole. But I'm going to walk through the packet just a little bit, and if you look the next page after the agenda, there's the committee membership of who all's on the committee. We have 3 people who are currently not here. And then there is the existing field of music that was adopted in October of 2000. Then you see the rules, not the rules, excuse me, the statute about fields of study that are required to be developed by the coordinating board in conjunction with the colleges. And then the rules, and you can see the rules, and it talks about the authority and specific purposes of the field of the Music Field of Study Advisory Committee, the membership, the meetings, the task assigned to this group. So y'all can look through that, and if you have any questions, I'll get Rex to answer those for you. Now that he's joined us at the table, but it's fairly straightforward. Ultimately, your charge is to develop the music field of study, and so we can talk about those in a little bit greater detail in the agenda items on down the list. But I'm going to let Rex introduce himself now.
Good morning. I'm Rex Peebles. I'm the Assistant Commissioner for Academic Quality and Workforce here at the Coordinating Board. And I appreciate all of you giving your time and attention to this. Transfer looms ever larger as an issue for students, and in terms of them getting a degree, it's even more important, I think, in areas like music, where it is so important that you not only get the right courses, but the right sequence of courses at the lower division level. Because if you don't, then you've turned your 4-year program into a 5-year program almost automatically. And that's if you take 15 hours a semester and really do full time. You're still going to turn your 4-year program into a 5-year program if you're not careful, because the sequencing is so important, which makes all the sense in the world. So I think this kind of thing is very important, and it's really important for students who want to transfer from one place to another place and to be successful. And I think what we're going to see, typically speaking, over half of all freshmen are enrolled in college or enrolled at a community college somewhere, and as costs continue to escalate, I think that may go up even more, and that'll be driven more by the capacity of the community colleges than it will be by anything else and their ability to absorb them. But in the interest of doing then what's in the best interest of those students and trying to make sure that everybody gets through a program in a timely fashion, then we really need to pay attention to these things. And so I appreciate y'all paying attention to it then. So and we welcome your best advice and counsel in the end, because I may have just already told you everything I know about music. So, yeah.
And whenever in January I talked to what's Texas Association, and I took band in the 6th grade, and my instructor was Mr. Scott, and it was not David, but I did not take band in 7th grade, and I think that was an agreement of all parties, and so I think I share Rex's musical ability, but. Anyway, okay. Now, the number 3 on the agenda, we need co-chairs, and we need somebody to take the official minutes. A word that we use around here that we think, or at least I think perhaps, that should be in the Webster's Dictionary is the word voluntote. To where you're welcome to volunteer yourself, or you're welcome to volunteer the person next to you. And normally we like trying to assign tasks to people who aren't at meetings, but that probably wouldn't work today because we actually want y'all to take the ball and run with this. So with that said, now and as I said, committee co-chairs, so we're looking for 2 nominations. Probably first for the co-chairs, and I guess we could do these one at a time. However y'all really want to do it. If somebody wants to nominate themselves, if it reverts to nothing, we actually have a red sticker under 2 chairs as a last resort. But y'all are all trying to look now, aren't you? Anyway, so would anybody like to volunteer to serve as one of the not volunteer, excuse me, to nominate themselves? To be one of the co-chairs, and I guess if we have multiple nominations, we will then perhaps let everybody speak about themselves for a couple of minutes and why they would be the best co-chair. But ultimately, you are going to vote. So with that, Cynthia from Del Mar, how do y'all want to do this? Do you want to now vote, or do you want to?
Susan Harvey raised her hand. Let's get that down before it gets.
Okay.
She changes her mind.
Good eyesight. So we have two.
It was kind of
we have 2 nominations. It was about a halfway, but
yeah, it was sort of tentative. But
any other nominations? And quiet falls across the room. Okay, so I guess based on that, could we perhaps have a motion to vote on the 2 nominations? Do you want to do them collectively or separately? I think since we only have 2, we could do them. We have multiple seconds, and so now all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. Since, and by the way, y'all are going to go to work here in just about 2 minutes, but we will, and really and truly, in all seriousness, first of all, thank you for volunteering, or not volunteering, but nominating yourself. But really and truly, I mean, Rex and I are really going to step back out of this as much as we can. We're here to answer any technical questions. We'll try to address any statutory questions and provide guidance on that. But this is really and truly y'all's conversation, not ours. And so shortly we're going to turn it over to you. But so with that said, we have our co-chairs. I'm going to hold on just 1 second on the recording secretary and allow Charlotte to introduce herself. And if you turn your microphone on, please.
Hello, everybody. I'm Charlotte Mueller from Lee College.
You can tell what you do if you want, or if that's good.
More or less coordinate some aspects of the music department at Lee College. We have division that includes architecture, visual art, drama, and music. And I've been there about 22 years.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, now the last position we have is a recording secretary, and it's the person that will ultimately provide the official minutes of this group, of this committee. Perhaps before you all cringe, I should tell you that we're actually recording this, and so we actually can go back and listen to it. But ultimately, you will be the secretary of the group and will provide the minutes, but our staff will help as well. Or Elizabeth will help. Like I said, she's in the closet right now. But so, same process. Would anybody like to nominate themselves, or would anybody like to nominate somebody? Either way.
I will nominate myself.
Okay, thank you.
Just because I've done it for several different organizations, so I can move right along with this one too.
Any other nominations? Hearing none. Okay, same process. Could we have a motion? Second. Second. Okay, multiple seconds. Okay, so all of that is good. All in favor, I'm sorry. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Now, y'all are pretty much in charge now. One last thing that I'm going to facilitate us through is term links, and I probably need to explain this to you a little bit, is by statute, all committees of this agency exist for 4 years, unless the board decides the committee needs to continue to exist. So, as I said earlier, this is really about the state of Texas. It's not about the individual institutions. We kind of think this committee will do the majority of its work in a period of time. We really don't know what that period of time is yet. But then, as I said, from House Bill 2628, the statute requires us to revisit the fields of study and decide if they need edits, and if nothing else, basically reaffirm them and update the date that they were last reviewed. And so we envision that membership will evolve off this committee over time. And so perhaps if you get all of your work done in 6 months, hypothetically speaking, then in 2 years or so, this committee would perhaps come back together and look at its work and decide if it needs to be revised again. But the thing we're trying to do is set up continuity. And so what we're going to do is we're going to set up a 2-year terms and 3-year terms. And so sometime before the 2-year terms expire, the group would meet. And then we would do the same process that we just completed to put this committee together. We would seek nominations for the replacements, and then we would bring those people on. And that way the committee will always have a level of continuity. Okay? So with that said, the basket, and Cheryl actually wanted me to walk around the group and give all of you a color. I'm not going to do that because this is being webcast. But if you would take one out of the basket and then write your name on it, and the different colors denote the different term links, and everybody will wind up with one, and whatever's left over we will give the people that are not here, because it's important to attend the first meeting or you get stuff assigned to you. But anyway. And while that's going around, if you have any questions, and again, just put your name on that, and we will collect those and pull them back together. With that said, and while that's going around, does anybody have any operational questions? I think I explained where the facilities are. I think I explained lunch. I think we've done the $10 for lunch. Perhaps I should apologize that we don't have money to provide you lunch. We, as Rex said, we are very appreciative of you and your institutions participating in this project, but we don't have budgets, we don't have funds that allow us to pay for your lunch, or we would. And it's not that we don't like music people. This is consistent across all of our committees, so nobody gets lunch. But thank you.
This is the state you're dealing with.
With that said, we should have the operational aspects of this under control. And there's a sign-in sheet. We'll need to make sure that everybody, we might need to run that back around, or perhaps when we take a break if you didn't sign in. But of course, we kind of know the 2 people that didn't sign in, so I kind of think I know the 22 that are here. Operational questions? We're all good? Okay, with that, I will turn it over to the co-chairs, and y'all can take the ball and run with it. And this is where y'all should engage in your conversation. And as I said, we'll listen.
I believe our charge is to review our field of study as it's, at least from the conversation this morning, that's what I've gleaned that we are supposed to be doing, as that is in our statute. And so we begin to look at where we are, and in our packet we find the field of study and the requirements set forth. And so I'm open to input from you all. I know that one of the areas of large discussion, at least at TAMS, is with the community college component of this committee, is with the 1 or 2 semesters of music literature, and so that is a place where we, I think, probably are looking for some guidance from our 4-year institutions and how many of them are willing to support the transference of 2 semesters of music literature over 1. I know my institution's already gone to 1, but I know that several of my colleagues have not done that yet. So we could start there as a matter of discourse.
At our institution we do 2, but one of them's in the field of study and one of them is in the academic core. So it's filling both areas. I don't see where there would be an issue whether, as far as transfer goes, that's going to be, the hours are accepted in both areas.
Right. I've actually been told from this organization that we don't need the core. We don't need to fulfill the core hours. The core hours are fulfilled when course is...
I'm not meaning the academic core, but I mean they can go into that academic side of the degree. The academic core has a fine arts 3-hour course that is built in there, and in our case 1309 is that course. 1308 is the one that goes, 1308 is in the academic core, 1309 is in the field of study.
Right.
And so, it's used both, covers both.
And you have had no reports of any problems transferring?
Absolutely not.
Great, fantastic.
Well, I'd like to speak regarding the issues we're having at South Texas College is when the associate degrees got cut to 60 hours. We've had serious problems, and music literature, we basically had to go with core reduction to get to 60 hours without taking away from everything else. There is absolutely no room in our degree plan for an extra 3 hours for the music literature. And we used to offer the 2 semesters, but the primary schools our students transfer to would have been UTPA, UT Brownsville, which is now the new UT RGV, their combined school. And they want the 1 semester rather than the 2. So we're always bouncing back and forth trying to figure things out. We do have the 1 semester of music literature is in the, it's not the fine arts, sorry, my brain's not working. What's the other core component area?
Creative arts.
Thank you. With philosophy and culture. That's where ours is located. But I don't believe we could put the other part in them with the creative arts part of the core component. So we have a problem with that with ours on trying to get our students.
What do you have in the creative
We have, right now, we actually took that away so that we could be at 60 hours. They'll have to take it when they go on to the 4 years. But to get their associate's degree, we actually had to cut 9 hours out of the core. And so we figured if we were asking other areas within the college to allow that core reduction, that the first place we should take it was from ourselves, just to be, that they don't take music appreciation or anything for their 2-year degree. They will have to take something out of that component area when they go on to a 4-year school. It's not like they're not going to take it, but we had to do that to get it 60 hours and have the applied lessons, the ensembles, and the theory. And we also would like our students to take piano if they can. And, it's taken a lot of tap dancing and a lot of fancy talking at curriculum meetings to try and get everyone on board. And luckily we have very sympathetic members at our school who understand, what we're dealing with. So I would love to have the 2 semesters of literature, but I'm not sure. I don't know where we could put it. And right now for us, our transfer schools don't want 2 semesters. They want 1. I think we all have different varying situations.
Yeah, let me just interject a couple of things that, and Gary may have already talked about these, so if that's so, I apologize. To keep in mind as you go through the process. One is then in addition to looking at what lower division courses ought to be in the field of study beyond the core, we would also, if y'all could reach consensus on this, also have some recommendations about what should be in the core itself. And it probably affects the creative arts portion of the core more than anything else, but it may affect other parts of it as well. I mean, as you can imagine, in like the natural sciences, it really does matter whether you take biology or chemistry or geology or physics if you want to be a biology or a chemistry or geology or physics major. So that stuff really is important in terms of helping a student get through in the sort of the minimal amount of semester credit hours as possible. The other thing to keep in mind is that you can, as you've already done, and as the current music field of study does, it is possible to then have more lower division hours applicable to the major and actually move the core to the transfer institution. As a general rule, any degree offered in Texas outside of associate of applied science degrees must embed the core curriculum in that degree, and that typically applies to associate degrees as well as to bachelor's degrees.
And just because the core is not complete when they leave an associate's degree does not necessarily mean that none of it transfers.
Oh no, not at all, because by law, core transfers component area by component area. And the field of study transfers course by course. Well, not only transfers, but also applies course by course. And so, we've got those caveats. So you can have a field of study that results in more hours that sort of eat into the core, so to speak, at the first 2-year level, which is what you have now with the music field of study. But you could also wind up with a situation where an associate's degree could then be more than 60 hours, because even under the 60-hour rule, if you're not supposed to have one more than 60 hours unless approved by the coordinating board. And so one of the criteria we sort of set for that is but if a field of study would result in an associate's degree of greater than 60 hours. And that's something for everybody, it's something for y'all to sort of reach some consensus about how many lower division hours are you really willing to accept into a degree program. And is that going to be, in this case, is that going to be more than, or whatever it might be, rather, in terms of music courses and related. But you could have a 66-hour degree, for example, if the field of study is going to result in an associate's degree. That would be higher, and that's permissible. So you've got some leeway in how you deal with this, but at the same time, you just have to sort of figure out, how many lower division hours.
And to me, that's the most
program.
important, because I want for my students the biggest bang for their buck. I mean, I want them to learn, but while we are teaching them what they need to get them prepared to transfer, I don't want them to have to go in and pay for a whole lot of stuff that is not going to transfer. And so I think that is really where we want to hear from our four-year institutions that our students are transferring to, which is all y'all, pardon my Texan. But truly, what do you accept? How do we make this an almost seamless transfer so that our students aren't traumatized when they leave us?
At UTEP, the lower division in music, history, and literature requirement is only 1 3-hour class. Music majors take more upper-level history, at least 2 3-hour classes. So one issue that has come up with students transferring from our local community college, El Paso Community College, to UTEP is they have more than 3. So even if they have it and the credit hours transfer, it wouldn't count towards their bachelor's degree. So from my point of view, and you wanted the point of view from a 4-year institution, there really wouldn't be an advantage to changing it from 3 hours to 6 hours.
If the 3 hours was in that creative arts part, that's a part of the academic core anyway.
It is, and if the students are advised well, they'll take the one that can count in both.
Well, that's how we do it. So it's covering both sides, and the student gets a benefit of certainly a more detailed. I mean, otherwise you basically have a music appreciation course.
Well, right, but I think what he's saying, and this is what I have been told and what I understand, that if your music literature course, one course, is a part of the core, the state-approved core, that it counts, that 3 credits counts as both. It fulfills the degree requirement and it is their core. So in essence, they don't need 6 hours still of music history.
Well, but I don't.
I mean, I'm not, or music literature, I'm not saying that it's wrong to do it. I wouldn't go that far. What's right for your students is right for your students, but that is what I understand, is that it can be both.
Well, the existing core is 35 could be up to 35 hours of the field of study is 35 hours.
Right.
Which that you can do that with the 2.
Right.
So.
But actually, on your chart, the music literature is 1 semester that is field of study. Legally, that's all that has to transfer.
Oh, exactly. But since you've got the fine arts, instead of them taking art appreciation or something, unrelated to music.
No, but I'm saying they no longer, if they take music literature.
Well, I agree.
They no longer have to. They no longer have to take another creative arts course.
Right.
So. It's a twofer, which I kind of like for my students, which means they're hitting two birds with 1 stone. But like I said, I agree with the more you know, the better our students are prepared to go into music history, the more that they have covered.
And that would be my argument, is that our students are not, 1 semester a lot of times isn't nearly what
they need
to be successful.
I would agree for community college students.
I'd like to pick up on Charles' comment that at West Texas A&M, it would actually be easier for us to have 3 hours. Our music majors already use music lit in the core, and it's 2 semesters at the present time. And because we have some old curriculum and credit assignments, so it's a 2-credit class each semester, which is wreaking havoc with 42 hours in the core. So I'm really going to be leaning on what this committee's sentiment is to convince the curriculum committee that we need to change that so that we have a 3-hour music lit class, so that the core comes out even and we're not jumping through hoops and creating 1-credit classes or using 1 extra credit of music lit, because they end up with 4. 3 of them count toward the core. 1 of them is dangling out there as some unnamed elective, and that then messes up keeping the degree hours down to the 120, 123, whatever the target has to be. So a real clean process for us is having 1 to bring in that would fill that core requirement and also the music lit requirement.
Just kind of hopping on what Bob said, at at Commerce, we do allow the double dipping, as you had suggested, but we also would allow any 3-credit arts class to count for the core. So how Hill College isn't a problem for us. I mean, we just count one place and one the other, or we count one for both when they get here. Our particular students only have to take the one class to count for both areas. So in terms of that sort of consistency, and it sounds like what you're hoping for as well, it might be better to only suggest one. But it's not a problem to have two.
Right, and I certainly don't want to limit. I don't want to come to a point where we even cut from the ACGM that second semester, because for those who have figured out how to have the credit hours and the time to offer it, again, the more our students know, the better prepared they are as musicians and in their careers, and that's what we're supposed to do ultimately anyway.
To throw in just some information, TAMS did a survey in the fall, and I had tabulated all of the results from that, and this was the most, area that had the most conflicts, or not conflicts, but the various forms of doing it. Out of the community colleges, 70% were doing one semester. At the state universities, 47% were doing one semester. Private, even we did private, even though we know they're not involved in this, but they have to kind of, they're at least following suit somewhat. There was 22% were doing one course. The 2 semesters, 28% of the 2-year community colleges were doing that. 27 of the state universities and 44% of the private universities were doing 2. So, and our students are, kind of a mixed bag, going private or state. So we try to make them both happy on both ends. So the survey kind of, gave us a little bit. And then we had some colleges that were totally, or universities that were totally different. One of which does not offer any literature in the first 2 years whatsoever, Texas Women's University. So it wasn't a clear, everybody does this. This one was all over. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. What was the response rate of the 2-year schools?
We had 16 universities responding and 19 community colleges. So we had 35 out of those, and of the universities, we had private universities 9. So total of 43 colleges and state and private universities.
At Sam Houston, we have one literature course for all the music majors. So what's currently in the field of study lines up with our curriculum. So it ain't broke for us, But occasionally we do, of course, have students who transfer in with 2 semesters of literature, and they get academic credit for that course, naturally, but there's just no place for it to count towards the music. There's simply nothing to count it for, because we only have the one course, and the rest of the work is done in advanced music history classes.
I need to throw a monkey wrench into the gearbox here. And really, this is in the form of a question to find out what the other 4-year institutions are doing. The one class, I'm thinking of Intro to Music History, that can count in both the core and towards the bachelor's degree, has a prerequisite of either music appreciation or actually taking our theory placement exam, because it includes so much emphasis on classical forms, and to understand classical forms you need to understand key relationships. So there's a little bit of a theory or music appreciation background kind of expected. So I'd like to know what the other 4-year institutions are doing as far as their introductory class, if there's a prerequisite or not.
We don't have a prerequisite for the music history. They go into music history that's considered lower level, 2,000 level course, and then the other 2 music histories are at the 3,000, which Charles had indicated that those are upper level when the kids come in. If they have more music literature, then they don't transfer, because we're teaching upper level concepts. And in fact, we have it set up where theory is a huge component in those upper level music history. So if they come in, we really want to make sure that they have at least music theory Music Theory 3 before they get into the upper level histories.
Our music lit classes are part of the freshman curriculum with no prerequisite, and then the upper level 3000 level music history classes require Theory 4 as a prerequisite.
At UT, is my phone, there it is. At UT, we don't really have a music lit class for the music majors. They begin the music history sequence in the sophomore year, and the prerequisite for that is freshman theory for the reasons that you already mentioned.
Commerce, we don't have a prerequisite per se, although we teach the literature class second semester of freshman year. So if you don't pass first Theory 1, you're not likely to take it. So it's sort of an unspoken prerequisite, but it's not. But somebody could take it even without that. And then we have to have Theory 3 at least as a minimum for our 300 level.
At Texas State, we do have a theory prerequisite to our music history course, and we do have a lit class.
In Kingsville, ours is a sophomore year lit class as well, but there's no written prerequisite for it. They can take it whether they've passed theory or not, but because it's a sophomore level, most of them have passed the first year theory.
At Lamar University, we have the music lit course, but they cannot take the 3000 level music history until they pass sophomore theory.
Yeah, and at Texas Tech, I'm sorry.
Ours is generally a sophomore class. I'm racking my mind. I'm trying to remember if there's a hard and fast Theory 1 or Theory 1 and 2 prerequisite. The prerequisite level would be pretty low because I know we occasionally have freshmen who take music lit.
Yeah, and at Tech there's no prerequisite. We have a freshman musicology class.
At UTEP, ours is a 1,000 level class, and I recently suggested to our coordinator of music history and literature that we change it to 2,000, and he loved the idea, so I'll go back there with a little more ammunition now in favor of getting it changed to a 2,000. And we'll talk about the prerequisite. Maybe we need to re-examine that.
I'm wondering, at Amarillo College, we also do the 2 semesters, and because we do 2 semesters, the classes are divided up in time periods, so early music and then later music. My question to the panel would be, if you're doing 1 credit, then what are you covering in the 1 credit? Or do you have a choice between different stop periods of music? I'm more into the content. I'm not a numbers guy so much. So I understand what you're saying, but I'm concerned about the preparation of the students at our level, and I want to make sure that are we taking 2 semesters worth of material trying to put that into 1, or are we doing a choice that you would accept either one of those time period classes, either the 1308 or the 1309? That's my question.
The 1 semester, and I know this was when we went to 1 semester, the faculty member had that question, well, how do we differentiate between 1 semester of music literature and music appreciation? And that's a difficult question to answer, except that I believe that music literature should focus solely on literature and composers, but not and be organized in periods of time, but not necessarily concentrate on those periods of time per se. I mean, each piece of literature that you might focus on will have certain qualities and certain elements that you will want to recognize, but the relationship to a period of time in history may not necessarily be, and I know that is completely flawed, but it is, when you're going from 2 semesters to 1 semester, how do you make a 1307 different from a 1306? And is that something that we want to investigate? Is 1306 enough to prepare them for music history? I personally don't think it is, but at least not my students.
I would say that we are going to that, to 1 semester, and my thought, and I also have the privilege of teaching music appreciation. What should I say? And I would say that I look at it as we must require more analysis type of the music majors and music literature. We will ultimately cover fewer pieces than you would in a 2-semester sequence, but we have to go into them in some depth and with some analysis to show the students how you analyze a piece of music. And I realize they'll do this in upper level theory some, but they have to have that step. And then also how do you write about music in a more scholarly way? I think that has to be a component of it in the major class too. Whereas in the non-major class, when I ask them to write about music, they frequently use elements of musical terms incorrectly. I finally have resorted to saying, just tell me what you hear. Don't use the big music words because you're using them incorrectly. I would love them to use them correctly, but they don't if they've never had any musical training before. And so I'm looking at it more as it's got to teach them how to write about music. It's got to teach them how, in this style period, approach music, look at it this way. What are the components or elements of it? I don't know if that helps. I don't know, what are the 4-year schools? What do you do in your 1 semester?
Well, there's the music appreciation class is the one that will count in the academic core, but not towards the degree. It's a 3-hour lower level intro to music history class, and then once they get into upper level, and the prerequisite is Theory 4 for upper level music history and literature, then it's a 2-semester sequence of upper level, but only 1 for lower level.
That's how we do it at Midwestern as well.
I think our 1 semester is very much like you said. It's not your traditional music appreciation course as much as trying to teach the students how to listen better, how to write better, and to do so obviously in a large chronological period because it is just 1 semester. But rather than focusing on historical details and such, it's really more about getting the students ready to know how to listen and how to write. So.
I want to go ahead and just kind of sum up what I'm hearing here in this discussion. What I'm hearing is that the 4 years seem to be preparing students as we'd want them to go out with a music degree. And perhaps it's not the job of the community colleges to make sure that both of those histories are offered before we send them to the 4-year colleges. Perhaps we just need to give them the skills to be successful in those higher level courses when we get there, but that maybe that's not the place for them at the community college level.
Well, music literature is part of the current field of study. So, in and of that, I think that we can help our students by offering that particular class. But again, I think you hit it on the head as to how do we use that class to prepare our students to be successful in music history, because I do believe that from what I hear from my own students when they transfer, that is one of the areas that is most difficult, most challenging when they get there is music history.
And I guess let me clarify what I was trying to say. I believe that the 1 is definitely necessary, and we can use that as a way to prepare, but maybe the 2 aren't. I didn't mean completely eliminate it from the discussion.
Right. And I think our current field of study as it stands only includes 1. So I think that might have been very, very intelligent. But like I said, for us, I don't foresee going back to 2, although I think our faculty members that teach in that area would probably like that. I don't foresee that is helpful to my particular group of students because of the number of credits that puts on them and where they stand usually when they graduate from us, because we're very ensemble happy and they like more than the required ensembles. So, and I think that's good for them as well to increase their playing. But let's address, if you're ready to leave, I think we have talked about music literature a lot, and I think that this is an important topic. And we may want to marinate in what we've heard and come back at another time and discuss this maybe later today or at another meeting and continue to address that. But are we ready to move on to something like applied music? Might be a good place to go next. And so how do we feel about 4 semesters of applied? Frankly, for my students, I almost wish it was 6, because sometimes the attitude is if they're not getting out of the community college in 2 years, which I would say that 75% of our students do not.
It's our school, it's 3 years for a 2-year degree.
Right.
Statistically.
Yes.
Because of all of the core. They have to take all their core.
And because they take 2 extra semesters sometimes, they see that they have that 4 semesters of applied music, and it is impossible to get them to continue to practice their craft. And so by the time they transfer to a 4-year institution, they have taken 2 semesters off of their instrument, which is a travesty because they are not ready for 3rd-year study on their instrument. And so while I'm not necessarily asking the 4-year institutions to give us 2 semesters of private lessons, I'm just telling you where our problems lie in the field of study as it is because of the requirements. Community college students typically are requirements only, unless it's really fun, like ensembles. And so they use that as ammunition in that 3rd year to say, we're not doing that. And so it's very difficult to encourage them to do what's best for them and not what's required of them.
That applies, of course, to ensembles as well. If they stay 3 years, then they need to be in an ensemble that 3rd year as well.
Totally.
And when you hit 4 credits of ensemble, then that's an X as well.
Right.
What we're running into is the problem with the Pell Grants. And we have kids who are coming in with dual credit of 20 or 30 hours. And so obviously, if we're going to keep them 2 years, and I love the word that you use, the marinate, they need to marinate for at least 2 years with us before they have any chance to be competitive at a senior institution. And our problem is if they come in and we give them 15 or 16 hours, then we have to ship them off halfway through the theory sequence. And that's not really the best thing for them. They need the time to learn and get this under their belt so that they do have a chance to be competitive. You know, our problem is we try to pull them down to 12 hours and keep them 2 years. And if we get to the point that, for example, piano has been pulled out, if we give them 12 hours and any of those 12 hours are not part of the degree requirements, which is piano and an additional lesson or an additional ensemble, if they're taking 9, 10, or 11 hours of Pell, of credit, non-credit, if they're taking 9, 10, or 11 hours, and if even just 1 hour is not a degree requirement, then they lose 1/4 of their Pell. So we have a big issue with Pell Grants, degree requirements, and dual credit.
Well, if I may speak how we address that at STC with that 3rd year problem is I just tell my students, you're starting over, you take Applied 1 again, and they take Applied 2 again. They just retake it. And then they're taking the credit, our faculty gets paid, they're getting their extra year, and they don't seem to mind. I don't know if we can do that anymore with what's happening with the, that they can't retake the class. But that's what we've done in the past. With the ensemble issue, frequently because students love ensemble, if I have my amount of students in there for my class to make, roster-wise, I let students just come in and sing. They're not taking for credit, but they're still there, and they're singing in their 3rd year. They don't pay for it, they don't get credit, but at least they are there. We have to do what we have to do, and that's kind of what we've had to do. But that 3rd year is a really big issue.
It's
or do we wait until their 2nd year for them to start their applied? And that's not good either.
Right.
I fully agree that the continuity of applied study is paramount.
Absolutely.
However, we have a problem, and I'm sure my peers do as well, with students coming out of the two-year colleges with 3 years and 3 years of credit, all of which we accept, most of it to the requirements, but 2 additional semesters of applied at the two-year college does not count toward their upper level applied, so they're looking at still 3 to 4 more semesters there. We have so many students coming in who, because of the number of hours that come in from the two-year college, run amok of the 30-hour rule, and we are constantly having to talk with the registrar about waivers because we have students getting up very close to 150, 160 hours and paying out-of-state tuition.
By the time they experience their required ensemble, their any extra private lessons that they may take as enrichment, which does occasionally happen, and then they are grabbed at for jazz ensemble participation. They're grabbed at for chamber ensemble participation, and you can't, in good conscience, keep them from that because you know that every time they pick up that instrument, they are improving. And every time, and they're more ready for you all, because I can tell you that most of the students that I see after 4 semesters are not ready to study privately as a junior.
Mm-hmm.
So to discourage their participation and the number of hours, and of course we, like you, have the problem of if we don't have enough students sign up, we also can't discourage them from taking those for credit, because we have to have a certain enrollment for the course to be viable. So yes, this is a problem. But as I said, then in the requirements on their own instrument, of course they want to do all of these ensembles and other things, but the requirements on their own instrument, when that's done, they're done. And so I find that a little bit discouraging, and maybe it's just attitudinal in our own culture that we're going to have to improve, and that might not be anything that we can address with this particular document. But I guess my question is, how are we as a group with the 4 credits of applied? Is everybody okay? I mean, I know we can live with it. We're going to have to find a way to work around that problem, but
I think if you're looking for a boilerplate for the first 2 years, that sort of
right
in the abstract, the first 2 years, then yeah, 4 semesters. I mean, 4 credits of ensemble and 8 credits of applied. I think everything that's here is boilerplate. If a student transferred without having done ensemble, or I mean, nothing here can go
right. Absolutely not.
And so. As far as, at least from my own perspective and the students at our institution, this absolutely would be catastrophic if a student transferred and hadn't and felt like they were 2 years into a program and yet they hadn't done anything here. So I sort of start from the standpoint in looking at this that everything here needs to stay.
Oh, yeah.
And where do we go from there? At least that's been my perspective.
If I can say something, I see it similarly. I see this as the field of music or the field of study are those lower division courses that are a minimum set of courses that apply to all music degrees, whether it's music education, music performance, composition, whatever it is, they apply to all of them. It's from my vantage as a community college member, it's the ideal student. I get maybe one every 10 years, but it's the ideal student that comes in with a background, is ready to go, and this is what they're going to take and go on. I think my problem with the field of study is this keyboard thing that's not there because of the thing. I remember when I was a TA at UT, there was some student who thought she could graduate and somehow forgot to take class piano until her senior year. She didn't graduate. She was angry. Well, it was in there. And that's my concern, is that I don't think, I mean, we've got it written down there as those hidden hours, and I understand why they're hidden. But I wish there was a way we could put into the field of study that you have to have, at least, break it down if you want to fewer, say at least 2 semesters of class piano, or or of not class piano, or is there a way that can be addressed? And the problem then, if I put class piano in, then they say, oh, your piano students, majors have to do that. Well, no, piano majors don't need class piano. They need piano lessons, and so then it looks different for them. And personally, my registration and curriculum meeting, they can't wrap their mind around that for some reason. And I didn't try real hard to, I'll admit that.
I would be more than happy to have the full 4 credit hours in the field of study, because that's what we do, and no one has come back to me to a T and said that is not transferring. There may be a piano barrier, but generally our students don't struggle with that either. So I'm open.
With the survey again that we did in fall, that was like 100% across the board, community colleges and state universities. I would say there was maybe 80% of the state universities had 4 semesters, but almost all of them did. Some of them, we talked yesterday, that in some cases they can get out in 3 maybe instead of 4, and stuff like that. But that's pretty much, the survey was across the board, both universities, private, state, everybody's in agreement pretty much that the 4 is something.
And on transfer, are you, 4-year colleges, I think probably almost all of you are requiring some sort of piano barrier for entrance for students who transfer?
Yes.
Okay.
And our own students too.
Right. No,
I mean, all the students have to have.
No, I would
piano
assume
proficiency.
it's applied fairly, but just
Yes.
want to make sure that would there be any argument to adding at least 3, possibly 4 semesters in credits, maybe making it 1 credit hour each, so a total of 3 to 4 credit hours of piano to the field of study, so that absolutely is going to transfer for future when none of us are chairs any longer.
We have the theory proficiency and the piano proficiency, so I feel comfortable adding the piano as long as we state that they're going to be subject to a proficiency at the 4-level institution. Sure.
Absolutely. I think that's just an assumption that we work off of as 2-year colleges, that you will require the students who are transferring to do the theory placement or theory exam and piano barrier.
I would rather, I'm sure, see more of the keyboard come in with the transfer and less of the academic core. For our students who are starting with us as freshmen, we already sort of distribute the core. We have seniors taking core classes, obviously, so that in their first year, they take 1 core class, perhaps 2, just so that we get in all of those essential skills. So it would be a benefit to us, I think, to have that in the field of study coming from the 2-year colleges at the cost of maybe some of the academic core being kicked down the road to the 3rd and 4th year.
That's a question I wanted to bring up a minute ago. Are you using the field of study?
The core that we will be starting in 2 weeks. The core that we did, where we did the core reduction, where we took the hours out of the academic core, does include 3 semesters of piano in that for the associates.
But are you using the field of study in your program?
Uh-huh.
Okay. I thought you said something about completing the full core.
Well, prior we did, but now we have reduced the core so that we can get the 2 years of theory, the 2 years of applied, the 2 years of, and we have got into our requirements for the associate's degree. They do get 3 semesters of piano as well.
To your question, ours now is 36 in the field of study, 24, I have to have it correctly, 24 on the academic core. So just what you're saying, we've reduced the academic core.
That's what
we know
we've
they're
done.
going to go and finish it up as your students would do starting as freshmen the same way. They're going to take it all through all 4 years probably.
Right.
So that's exactly what we do.
At UTEP, for piano, whether it's a transfer student or one of our own native, I believe is the term they use, native students, our degree requirements are very clear. There's a piano proficiency, not necessarily the piano class requirements. So having a piano class transfer and count really wouldn't have any advantage. They could either play with the piano faculty and meet the proficiency requirement, or to meet the requirement, take and pass the fourth semester piano. Whether they take 1, 2, or 3 depends on their incoming level of proficiency. And our piano faculty, bless their hearts, designed a 4-semester piano sequence to coincide with the 4-semester theory and oral skills sequence. But as far as being able to transfer hours of class piano from the community college to the university, there really wouldn't be an advantage because it's not really a degree requirement per se.
Okay, it's kind of a convoluted problem. It's more, I understand where you're coming from, but the problem is that with our financial aid, the way it's set up and the requirements, if it's not stated on the degree plan, they won't pay for it, and as was mentioned, their grants get reduced. So it becomes a financial issue.
And it's because it's those hidden hours that you mentioned.
Right.
Okay.
Right, and as we discussed, that pretty much I think we understand that all of the four-year institutions that our students may transfer to are going to require some sort of piano barrier that they must get through. So whether or not we've done the job is, we hope we have, because we hope we've prepared our students to be able to pass that barrier, but we do expect that that's still going to be a part of their transfer within those requirements.
So if I may ask a question then, similarly to the third year of private lessons that you were mentioning, if there is no keyboard class requirement, do you have students not taking piano in general at the 2-year schools because it's not on there, or I'm just asking.
Yeah. They won't take it unless, because it's not here, I'm just going to do the minimum in life to get by. And that's why also with our institutions that we have articulation agreement with, we tailored our courses, of course, where 99% of our students transfer to. And they wanted 3 semesters of piano. And we're like, great, we want them to take it. And with one of the schools, they said if they have an A or B in piano 3, we will accept that as piano proficiency, which was a huge barrier for our students to be able to get in. Or if the grade was lower, they could go in on a probationary and they had to pass a proficiency that first semester, otherwise they could not take upper division courses. And that's worked very well for our students on being able to get their feet in the door and take those start on those upper division classes. And that's what we did, because that's what our articulation, the higher institution, I'm having a hard time forming words, but our neighboring 4-year schools, that is what they asked us to do, so we complied with that.
Yes, sir.
Is it possible to add credits to this list here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's.
I would say that the financial aspect that was brought up, that the classes won't be paid for because it's not on the list, is a real issue for us. And on the other hand, we don't want to graduate anybody who is not proficient at the piano. I guess everybody agrees with that. I'm not sure if they could be on the listing here an extra little 2-credit segment that could be called piano proficiency or elective or whatever, whereas the 2-year colleges, the faculty or whatnot, can make a decision for that particular student. It could be that they need 2 semesters or 2 credits of piano proficiency. For this other student, for example, who's a music composition major, which is an issue for me. Great composers, but the state won't pay because it's not on the list. Another issue there. A little elective segment that will give freedom to 2-year colleges to give them what they need during those 2 years to get them going and get them ready for years 3 and 4.
Right. I think I think I hear two aspects of your statement there, that we addressed piano, but then we also addressed electives. I'd like to address the two separately, because I know that at least for my college and maybe for many of you, we teach the piano. We teach 4 semesters of piano, and it's on our degree plan, and luckily no one has called us on it saying that it's not in the field of study, but we have put that on our list of requirements for their degrees. But I would just like to have that supported in the field of study is all I'm asking. But I also hear in your statement the elective component. And so I think Professor Dye has a comment about that.
Well, it's about the piano, and this may be a completely naive thing, but if piano was included in the field of study, then for the 4-year institutions, do those hidden piano hours then no longer remain hidden?
Right.
Well, but they're not actually hidden in ours anyway. I mean, at least our degree had the 4 hours.
But I think many places they are.
Well, maybe they are, yeah, and they can be the way it was kind of written
I mean,
here.
piano is nowhere on our degree programs. It's just there is a piano proficiency requirement that can either be met by playing or taking the courses.
Oh, really?
But they're not listed in the 120 hours.
Okay.
So if it's in the field of study, then they have to be, which all of a sudden we're over our limit.
Pushes you.
Right, because the field of study, while directed at 2-year schools, it's going to take, and this was exactly what your statement is turning on a light switch for me, is then becomes also effective in the 4-year colleges, and we can't do that to our 4-year buddies here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to always keep in mind about field of study that actually it's directed at 4-year institutions. Because while it is voluntary on the part of a 2-year institution to adopt a field of study or not, but if a student completes a course or courses in the field of study, it is obligatory on the part of the 4-year institutions to accept it and apply it to that student's degree program. So you're absolutely correct. If it comes, if you put 1 hour or 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours in the field of study for piano, then when it comes to your institution, that's 1, 2, 3, or 4 hours that becomes a part of your degree plan, in effect. So you're absolutely right about that. Yeah. So always kind of keep that in mind as you.
So are your native students, as they say, taking piano, and is it not a degree requirement?
It's not a degree requirement, but it's a degree requirement that they pass proficiency, and one of the ways to meet the proficiency is taking 4 semesters of piano.
So how does that affect your financial aid for your kids?
As long as they're full-time students, they're okay.
And again, you don't have the problem with the dual credit and trying to pull their schedules down as much as we can in order to keep them for 2 years. What we're trying to do is pull them down so that we can let them marinate for those 4 semesters and stay with us instead of leaving after 1 year. And therefore, we run into this issue.
I think that the problem that the 4-year schools have now is the 150-hour limit, because at that point, then they have to pay more. And so that's the issue where we would have, if you're throwing 4 more hours at somebody, then, again, with music majors who are taking multiple ensembles and such, they're already at a danger of going over that 150 hour.
Especially, I think about our music ed majors, because I have a degree from a Texas institution, and I look back on it, and it was about 150 some odd credit hours to get that music ed degree. And so now that you're down to the requirement where you are, you're barely getting things in.
Again, I'm going to say something. I'm sorry, Bob, just real quick, kind of naive maybe. The 4-year institutions, the state institutions, are we all down to 123, 124?
Yes.
Are there any that are?
We have,
on paper.
We have the teacher certification on top of the 120 hours, of course, like everybody else.
Most of the music degrees in the state are between 120 and 127, and depending on what degree it is, and
including teacher certification.
No, almost no
ours
one.
does.
Ours does.
Our music certification is 127.
124.
We're at 117 and 119, and then we add the teacher certification on.
15 hours or 21? 15? Yeah.
No, our music degrees, except for certification degrees, are at 120. With certification, they're at low 130s.
See, and that's really an uneven I mean, we're getting off topic here. I'm sorry,
Right.
Cindy, but
No, but
that's
this
really an
applies.
uneven
This is
enforcement across the
totally-
state. I mean, and
Right.
it's home enforcement, campus interpretation.
That's why we have our piano classes in our program.
Exactly.
We don't have them hidden.
So if we were able to educate statewide what's going on in some places, that the teacher certification could go on top of the other degree, then this wouldn't be an issue.
Right, exactly.
It help.
We talked about creating the piano in terms of a hidden hours, and our administration wouldn't let us do it. They absolutely wanted to rid all hidden hours of all degrees, and they looked at the piano requirement, as you described, as being hidden hours, and so they would not let us do it. We have to have them in our degree, and so our teacher certification degree is 132 hours, and a lot of it is because of those 4 hours of piano that we were not able to, cut out because the administration wouldn't allow us to.
We do not hide the piano hours. They're in the requirements, and what we hide is ensembles. And just as a little what's a little parenthetical comment to that, we did a study when of the students that were experiencing problems with the 150-hour rule. And thinking, because the conventional wisdom was that, well, they're taking too many ensembles, they're registering, and that's what's driving the hours up. And in fact, that was not the case. The problem was largely too many hours of transfer coming in from a two-year college, or how many times did they have to repeat college algebra?
I'll say our music studies degree exists on its own without certification or with certification. So we're at the 117 and 119 for one's choral and one's instrumental, but you can achieve the degree with certification or without. So, that's how. So that you don't have to have the certification with a music studies degree, and you don't have to hide your hours if you would let it stand on its own as a music studies degree, and then have the choice of the certification along with it.
Yeah, we're in exactly the same situation as Keith at Texas Tech. Our degree plans are 120. The music education 120 does include the teacher certification. None of them include the hidden hours for piano or hidden hours for remedial theory, which we haven't talked about yet.
Could I ask a slightly different procedural question? The current field of study says field of study curriculum shall consist of 27 to 35. Is that Texas Education Code, or if we wanted to put in 4 semesters of keyboard, could we go to 36, 37, 38, 39 legally? I'm not suggesting we're going to. I just want to see if we should even, if we don't need to be having this conversation because we're already limited, then we can move on.
No, yes, theoretically you can do that.
So we can say however many hours we want, recommend.
I mean, but I think you also got to keep in mind that this is just something to think about as you proceed through this. You have a 42-hour core that is lower division, and typically you could use 3 hours of that core for that would be actually applied to a music major, maybe 6. But then the question then becomes, so how many total lower division hours do you want out of a 120 to 130 hour degree, roughly? And so, so you still, somewhere in there probably needs some balance of that. And so if you're at 42 and then you add another 30 of lower division, then you're at a 72 hours of lower division. And then so do you want to go beyond that? Right. But it's just something to keep in mind as you work your way through this. But yeah, theoretically possible. Sure.
In regard to piano, I taught beginning piano for several years. There's a difference between 4 semesters of taking the class and actually doing the proficiency. And when I look at it, it's not the amount of semester hours. It comes down to, can you do this skill, this, and this? And some kids can do every skill without having ever touched a piano. They can do it in 1 semester. Some kids need 8 semesters to do it. So, yeah, so and because each student works at their own pace, it's very difficult to say you have to pass all of these at this certain time. They're starting a new instrument as a young adult. So, if we got more technically into it, it would be what proficiencies would count at the secondary or at the 4-year university level. And that's how I see it. And that's where there's even more disparity across Because there are some folks that say they'll never need piano, and there are folks that say, yes, you need piano. And I'm one of those folks as an instrumentalist. Yes, piano can be valued as a classroom teacher.
That's opened a big can of worms.
I did,
because,
yeah.
I've been a part of TAMS for over 25 years now, and we've done multiple surveys. And we try to ask that question, what is your piano proficiency requirements? And boy, that's like it's under a lock and key. Nobody wants to really reveal that. I'm talking pretty much to the four-year university people, because it's so different from place to place, what one requires, what they do. They don't require it at all. There's a UT system university that's relatively close to us that does not have any piano requirement for proficiency. So it's all over the board, and we can't ever seem to get those answers very clearly.
Well, I'll come clean, Philip.
No, it's not you. Just to give them the secret handshake.
Our requirement is for our native students, they have to have 4 semesters of class piano and pass all 4 semesters. The assumption being if they've passed with a grade of C or better, they have met the requirements for proficiency. If we have students who are more advanced, they get their 4 credits. They're moved into a half-hour applied lesson, so they get a little extra. They all take 4 credits, one way or the other, whether it's all class or a combination of class and applied. And occasionally we have students who come in with already proficient, and they're placed into piano lessons for 4 semesters.
We have different requirements for instrumental music ed than we do for choral, and so that might be an issue, and that we only require 2 semesters for the instrumental folks and 4 for choral.
Honestly, I think for Del Mar, we've been able to, again, this is a place where we kind of leave the field of study, and we do require 4 semesters of piano except for from piano majors. And it's appeared on our decree plan now for a while, and no one really argues with us about that. We don't have a financial aid issue because it is in our college adopted degree plan. And so that's not really been a problem. But if there were, I know we've had this discussion many times at TAMS, and did we want to bring that in? And now I see why it might be more problematic to bring it in as an adopted part of the field of study rather than I can certainly understand and sympathize, because I know that when push comes to shove, how hard it was for us to make our degree 60 hours, but how much more difficult it was for you all to make yours 124 or less. So I certainly understand that and can sympathize. And so as long as we are willing to some extent to share what we know about our piano proficiencies with us so that we can continue to prepare our students regardless, then I think we can have that curricular discussion in meetings at places like TAMS where, we can deal with what we are doing as 2-year schools and what's best for us.
I wanted maybe to revisit this thing that came up about the piano not being required, but proficiency is. And I think we've sort of gone in and out of that. And I think now we have the 3 semesters that are, unless the student can demonstrate proficiency without taking the classes. But it seems if we all have class piano on the books and available to our freshman and sophomore students, whether they are required to take the classes or not. If the classes are on the books and some do take the classes, then if it became a part of field of study, then the issue of being required to apply the classes to the degree, I don't see that would be an issue, because they could be applied to the degree in the same way they're applied when native students take those classes, whether they're required or not. They would simply get credit for the 3 semesters of class piano, and it would be applied to the degree in the same way it would be if a native student, which probably most of them do, take the class piano, and it's applied to the degree.
But if it's not in Keith's degree plan at all.
Right. Whether it's in the degree plan or, but it's not in the degree plan for the music students who are native students who are taking the class.
Right, but the key is, in terms of documentation, it would have to be in the degree plan then, if it's in the field of study.
Yes.
Would have to be in the degree plan.
I think Wayne's suggesting more that,
well,
language that talks about moving towards a proficiency as opposed to a specific number of credits.
In fact,
am I misinterpreting?
No, I was
what
just
you're saying?
trying to find it's obviously a need for most students to take class piano. Most students don't walk in whether they're native students or whether they're starting school, they don't walk in the door with the ability to demonstrate piano proficiency. So even though it's not required, the proficiency is.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the cap on credit hours, a lot of us we've had to say, okay, technically, it's not required. It's not just technically, it's not required. If you can pass the piano proficiency, have at it. You don't have to take class piano. But most of them have to take it.
Is there a stronger statement about the skills that need to be demonstrated in the proficiency that we could use and still have the hidden hours, but statements about what might be required? Again, we're addressing this place that we,
Well, see, I don't know what you need to satisfy federal government for grants and whatnot. Maybe this statement about keyboard competency, which I think is pretty good, but maybe it just needs to be strengthened, or maybe some verbiage could be placed in that statement that would give you enough justification for requiring those courses, because it's not possible for the 4-year schools, all of them that have taken that out of their and maybe painfully, but taken a lot of courses out of what we'd like to require, but we can't do it because of the credit hour limits. They're just not going to be able to go and put those back in. It's not practical. So, but maybe this statement about keyboard competency, and it's almost universally expected, maybe that could be strengthened to the point that it could satisfy the financial aid folks. That I don't know.
Can I jump in real quick? I mean, I don't want to derail the conversation, but y'all have been working for about an hour and a half, and I don't know if you need any kind of facility breaks or anything. Lunch will be here around noonish, and as we kind of scheduled it to be a working lunch, but we appreciate your work, but we also appreciate there are other needs as well.
More basic needs.
So shall we take 5 about right now and then come in and finish? 10. Okay, 10. So I'll see you all at 36 after 11.
You're a tough one.
Hey, for the group at the table, as we come back together, y'all, timeout, technical foul. Hang on, please. The media folks ask that if you're not talking, to make sure your microphone is off. With having several of them on at the same time, it provides feedback, something like that, into the broadcast, and it creates problems. And so if you're not talking, please turn it off.
Okay, as we gather back, I think we've had a lot of really good discussion, and I think that's what we need to do today is have some discussion and some talking points, and mostly some thinking and marination points, I'll use that word again, as we go forward from here. And I think there was one last and I thought at the time very fruitful idea for conversation, which was the music theory category and possibly some hidden hours that exist there. And I know there are some questions about the differentiation in the 12 to 16 credit hours and what that means, and how we can make this theory thing No, Charles, was it you that brought up the idea of the hidden
I did mention the hidden theory hours in a similar situation to the hidden the piano hours. I've been giving our diagnostic exam for, a long time, 12, 14 years. And extremely consistently, our incoming freshmen, 7 out of 8 of them need some remedial theory. And it used to be we just offered a 1 3-hour fundamentals kind of basic class. Our problem was students who took it in the fall had no theory or oral skills spring or summer, and those are the people who need it the most. So now we offer a 2-semester fundamentals class, which would be technically a remedial or developmental class, and students can take the 2 semesters either fall and spring or spring and summer, and that way be up to speed for Theory 1, Oral Skills 1 in the fall of what would be their second year. But those classes are not in the degree plan, but students who test it, here's the way it works, and it's probably other institutions are similar. For Theory 1, Oral Skills 1, there is a prerequisite of either fundamentals or passing a proficiency exam. And that's how they end up in those hidden hours. Other 4-year institutions, I see you nodding your heads over there.
Yeah, Charles, we up until I think it was 3 years ago, basically did the same thing, and the theory faculty just got together and eventually just said, kind of just changed it to a sink or swim kind of thing because of the year delay in getting behind in terms of degree. I don't have any more insight on it than that, but that's where we are right now.
We had a similar, or our approach has been understanding that 7 of 8 are not going to pass that test, so we don't bother with it. We start assuming that that's where they are and just move through the theory sort of like if they're starting from scratch.
Sounds like we're in parallel universes. I mean, we dealt with this quite a number of years ago, and we got to a point where large numbers of freshmen were not passing diagnostic exam. So it just sort of brought to the table the question of what does it mean that we're admitting a student? If we say we're admitting a student to our program and they can't begin taking courses in our program, the very idea of what it means to admit a student was challenged. I don't mean that having diagnostics invalidates that, but the kind of numbers we had. And so, yeah, basically we arrived at the place to decide and said, well, look, if Theory 1 has to be for the students we're admitting to our program. And it has to be a course that they have a reasonable chance of, it has to, I wouldn't say we lowered our standard. I wouldn't want to say that, but anyway, at least philosophically, that's I don't think we're not sending students anymore to remedial theory. We actually test to see if they need Theory 1 or not, and occasionally, very few times, but occasionally they test out of Theory 1. But we don't have the remedial classes anymore.
We're in the same boat. We haven't done the Theory 0 for about 5 years. We still give the placement test, but that's more to let the students know if they might be in trouble or not. Yeah. So we and very often the kids that score the lowest end up by the second or third test being a lot better just because we gave them that little kick when we did.
I will say that with our starting everybody as if they have never played a note of music, we made a change this year in the structure of the theory classes, in that there's a limit on the size, and we'll offer as many sections as we need to, but we cap the classes at a maximum of 18 students. So students are able to get the individual attention they need to succeed.
Are there any four-year colleges that still offer the basic fundamentals course?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And is it as a remedial course where students start off in Theory 1, or is it they have to take that in lieu of taking they don't get placed into it, or is it a remediation class after they fail Theory 1?
No, it's not for failing Theory 1. It's just for the proficiency test. and then they go into, we call it baby theory, but but it's the same sort of thing as Charles said. You can either take it fall and spring or spring and summer, and then you catch up in the following semester.
We do use the remedial class for students who cannot pass the first semester, but it's also required for our fairly robust musical theater program. That's where they get their theory, so that's how we use it.
And I believe that the discussion of music theory is one of those things where it's good to know what other like institutions are doing, but we can kind of knock down the 2-year, 4-year wall because we are all in the business of teaching music theory. And so what we do ultimately affects our students throughout their college career in music theory. I know that we do still give a placement exam, and we do still use fundamentals as a baby theory, as a zero theory. We have also added, since we teach this oral skills component as well, we have added class voice if they do not pass their proficiency as training ground in a developmental class for oral skills. Because we found that many of our students came out of fundamentals and were ready to go for Theory 1, but they were not ready to go in Oral Skills 1. So nonetheless, they were being held back because they didn't have the necessary skills to get out of the sight singing or training class. So yes, it's more hidden hours, but yes, we're finding that when we get to Theory 1 and Oral 1, we have a higher pass rate in students who are staying on time. The way we combat that with getting behind in the degree, because fundamentals and class voice are 1 semester only, we offer Theory 1 in the spring. We offer pretty much everything. We don't offer Theory 3 in the spring because of it affecting so few students. We don't offer Theory 4 in the fall. So we don't, we offer Theory 1 and 2 all semesters, and then we specialize in 3 and 4. And so that's how our students don't get too far behind. They can also take Theory 2 and Sight Singing 2 in the summer. So if they are behind in that category, when they get to their first summer, they can take that in the summer and get caught back up.
I did have one question about theory. And David Scott said, oh, that's because I was questioning the hours. Does anyone only require 12 hours of theory and oral skills? I mean, is it everybody at 16?
No, well, in the survey, there were several schools, not a lot, but that do offer, and it's in the ACGM, that you can have a 3-hour theory instead of a 4. And so some of them are doing the 3-hour semester theory as
okay, but that's
and
without.
That comes up with 12.
That's without the oral skills, right?
No, it's there. You can do it as a 3-hour, but it confines it.
We do it as 3 hours. It comes down to credit hours and the 60-hour cap, and how can we get in what we need to get in the amount of time that we have.
This came up at the recent Texas Society for Music Theory pedagogy session, that almost all of the 4-year universities were teaching theory Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and oral skills Tuesday, Thursday.
That's what we do.
And theory is usually 4 semesters of 3 hours, and oral skills is usually 4 semesters of 1 hour.
So Sharon, your receiving institutions, the ones that you send most of your students to, do they just assume a proficiency, and if they can get through Theory 4, they give Theory 4, or do they credit 12
seem to not
credits?
Have an issue
Okay.
with the hours.
Sure.
But we do, they receive 3 credit hours, but they spend 5 hours a week in class. And it is 2 classes. We have theory and sight singing ear training separate. Monday, Wednesday, Friday we have theory. Tuesday, Thursday we have ear training. They're putting in the amount of time, they're just not getting the credit hours.
We do the same thing, very same thing.
And so, go ahead, sorry.
Since it got quiet, I thought that if we're looking at the field of study curriculum of what was approved in 2000, I know we have till 3, but it seems like that's not going to be enough time. possibly looking at what had been established and going straight through it in an organized manner. And some of the topics we've talked about here and there, because there might be new classes that are important that folks think that should be included, or some that should be deleted. And as Wayne had spoken earlier, he said that he didn't see where any of this needed to be changed in terms of the hours. So perhaps we could make that approach. Are you in agreement, Cindy?
Absolutely. In fact, I was going to ask you over lunch to take the second half today.
All right, so on the current field of study, let's all just take a minute to read the first half of this. As I look at the first paragraph, it says community and technical colleges. Are they still referred to as technical colleges in Texas?
Yes, TSTC is considered a technical college, and the definition also includes the Lamar Institutes.
And this is also somewhat applicable to our AAS degrees. If those of you who are at community colleges have AAS, there is not total application, but I know that we have used some of this in our AAS, especially as it pertains to applied music and music theory. It's certainly not a blanket for those degrees, but it is helpful.
Is there anything that somebody would like to add regarding the first paragraph statement?
I think we should leave it as it is.
Okay, the field of study courses, we've discussed that. It says 27 to 35 lower division semester credit hours, and that's up for adjustment based on what we see fit. So as we go through this, that's what they did in 2000, and we can make changes to that as we find appropriate.
And maybe y'all are not under obligation to revise this instrument and readopt this instrument. We've had some internal conversation as to what the substance of the new field of study will look like. There's a little bit of conversation earlier about the fields of study are for community colleges, and then Rex said no, they're for the universities because they're statutorily required by the universities to transfer the courses, right, the sequence, as we've discussed. I think a bit of it is actually for the students. And I really and truly would like to see more of a format of that a student can pick this up and really understand it and read it. And, perhaps even, if you will, a high school advising instrument. I mean, that's not what it is, but to help so that students know some of these issues you're talking, that students are taking 2 and 3 years and are getting sidetracked and that kind of stuff. And then Rex spoke about core courses, and he gave the example of the science courses where maybe that's not an issue in this discipline of which science courses you take, but to help provide more of a blueprint or a roadmap or something like that. So obviously you can talk about this, and I think after this group has had a chance to digest all this, you can start figuring out what does the final document look like. But this was not provided to you as saying revise this and let's move forward. It was really just giving you from a historical point of view.
I might add that it might be important to consider, especially for community college representatives, that this has some applicability possibly to dual credit and the fine arts I'm forgetting the term now, but HB5, the fine arts, not certification, but yes. And so this might, Gary brought up a high school advising document. It might be applicable for any students that are receiving dual credit in your college that might be pursuing that fine arts.
Track.
Right, exactly, in the high school diploma.
Do you see, do we need to break it down by semesters? I think that might be one point in the fact, I mean, we all assume when we say applied study that it will be this, or I assume at least, that it will be the same instrument for 4 semesters. I have students who somehow don't understand that. They think they can take first semester violin and then piano, and then they can go around and do that. Since
we call
we're
it musical ADHD.
yeah. And I'm wondering if we need to say that freshman year, if we're thinking of it being an advising for the student, or if that's something each school needs to do, that's fine too.
That recently came up with an advisee of mine who took 2 semesters of flute and then switched to oboe. And I was told by the dean's office in the College of Liberal Arts that the department has the power to accept the applied on the other instrument as counting towards his degree for that, the number of semester hours for that level.
Well, I think the flexibility is the issue more so. I mean, I think the more we try to get everybody in a box, we're going to run into more issues. That if we can leave it as broad and let each institution handle that, I think would be better.
I know that I've seen several students come through that were maybe poorly chosen on the instrument that they seem to be coming in as a primary, and they cannot achieve the level of competency that they need to achieve to be able to advance. So for something similar like flute and oboe, or for trumpet versus French horn, we might need to maintain that flexibility to be able to make those decisions about changing students who need to be changed.
One of the problems that we've had over the years is that with transcripts going to the senior institution, there's no differentiation between somebody who wanted to take trumpet as an elective or trumpet as a major. It just comes out as a MUAP lesson. And invariably, I'd get some calls from a senior institution after Joe Schmo took 3 semesters or 4 semesters of trumpet just wanting to have fun, and he transfers to a senior institution and then says he's a trumpet major. And the teacher there would call me up and say, look at this repertoire. This is ridiculous. He's not a trumpet major. And, we ran into that. So about 20 years ago, I just set up a second set of lessons. They're still under the ACGM number, but they have MUSE as the prefix instead of MUAP, and it says, therefore, in the transcript, music elective. And it's a lesson that they only get elective credit for. And what we do now is that we audition as a faculty, we audition every incoming student to see whether or not they are at college level. And if they are not at college level, they have to go into MUSE lessons, and they have 2 semesters to bring themselves up to get into college level, or they simply are not allowed to continue.
Looking at the courses in the rest of the document, we'll end up adjusting whatever. I do appreciate Gary's input on saying this is what has been done. We can use it as a reference, but we also need to bring it up to date. And I liked what Marilyn said about the number of semesters in regard to, is it courses that we're interested in? Is it specific hours? So that's going to be something for us to discuss in the future as well.
Do we want to take a lunch break?
Well, and to some extent, the competency, proficiency, and diagnostic assessment kind of not overrides, but I mean, going to somebody taking elective trumpet for 3 semesters, if they can't pass what we consider to be our junior level barrier, then we would allow them to continue to take another few semesters of what we call 100 level lessons, regardless of how many semesters they came in with. I mean, we would certainly accept this number, but it's still a proficiency-based thing. So I don't know that's all that. It's certainly a big worry on the student side. For us, if they can pass it, that's fine. If not, I mean, chances are we're going to put them in 100 level lessons for the first semester that they're with us anyway.
True.
Just to make sure that they can pass that proficiency, and then we move them to 300. There are fewer 300 level hours required than there are 100 level hours.
But they're not going to graduate from us until they have 4 semesters at MUAPS. So that takes care of the third year of lessons, too. Mm-hmm. If they audition and they don't make college level, then they take a year of MUSEs, and then they can move up to MUAPs, and you haven't gotten to that level yet.
And I'm a little confused by that language, too. I can see the solution with applied lessons, but if we are to accept all the courses in the field of study automatically as transfer, and then it says we can't require them to repeat courses. But what if they've taken the class, passed it, but they don't have the competency that's required? What do we do to remedy that? If they've got the class, it's passed, it's on their transcript, and so you're deficient, and we have to live with it.
What happens to one of your native sophomores who passes most of their what's required to move on to junior level lessons, but they messed up a couple scales, so you allow them to take one more semester of 100 or 1,000 level lessons or 2,000, whatever.
Yeah, that works fine with the applied. I'm thinking of other, content classes, and what we would call MUSI classes as opposed to MUAP.
Mm-hmm.
If we have what if we have a student of I'm looking, for instance, at a theory class, right? I'm just that's
we give a theory placement exam and then suggest that they move to whatever level they're at, and some of the folks that we get transfer are done, and others we suggest retake Theory 3 or Theory 4 or perhaps both. I mean, that's we still accept the credit,
sure,
but we advise that.
So we can get them to repeat a class by advising for their own good, but we still are required. If they say no, I'm not going to take it over again, we just say okay. That's a little problematic for me, but
I was under the impression that if you required, say, for semester theory, they had to pass that exam before they could go on to junior standing, whenever you said they had to pass it, if somebody coming in couldn't pass that exam, then they would have to repeat it too, if you do that. But I could be wrong. Go ahead, Dave.
It would be treated as a prerequisite for other things. If they can't take conducting class until they've passed Theory 4, if they have Theory 4 on a transcript, but they haven't passed our Theory 4 final exam, we would make them retake Theory 4 as the prerequisite to getting into those upper level classes. So it's not really based on the class, it's based on the proficiency.
I think we may need some clarification here, though, because there is confusion about this, especially with theory, because I was also under the impression that the only way that you could ask a student transferring in to retake a music theory class was as if you also had an exam that your students had to take, and a barrier type exam. Otherwise, you couldn't force a transferring student to take an exam and not be able to move forward. Is that
so? Getting a C or better on the final exam from Theory 4 counts as that barrier exam.
I don't know. We have a separate exam. We have a separate exam for that very purpose, because. But we'd love to do away with it. Well, we could, but
so if if you have native students that pass Theory 4 with a C or better, but then don't pass something in your particular barrier, they're not allowed to move on to the upper level classes. And that same thing would happen for the transfers. You could embed that in your theory. I would think you could embed that in your Theory 4 final exam if you wanted to. That's just me saying that. I don't know that that's SACS or NASM or anything.
The other statement I would make is that my understanding is that you need to make that exam if you offer it for Theory 4, obviously in, say, April or May, at the end of April, beginning of May. Then you also need to allow those transfer students to try to make an attempt at it in May so they don't forget everything over the summer. But
we've never done that. I don't know.
I think the language of the paragraph is pretty clear that it says, you can give a diagnostic exam if you also give it to your native students. I know in years past we've had situations where someone has transferred to us after 1 year at the 2-year college and enrolls in Theory 3, only to find out that they have not gotten the material that we assume has been covered in 1 and 2. And then this says, well, we've accepted their credit for 1 and 2. We're not giving a diagnostic exam for people to advance to Theory 3. So that person has to sink or swim because we can't require them to go back and take Theory 2 again. That's what the language of the paragraph says.
It's true, but they can make their own decision to go back and take the class again. But they can't be required to. But they can't be required to repeat it.
So they fail Theory 3, and then repeat it. Hopefully, they pass it the second time. So there we are, setting them up for a failure by saying, you know what, you didn't quite get the material you need, so you really would be better served to go back and take this class and take it, again.
However, you gave a final examination to every one of your Theory 2 students. Mm-hmm. And so it would be fair at that point in time to give that Theory 2 final examination to that person transferring in.
Okay, use that as a diagnostic tool.
They're at the same place.
Can we incorporate?
I'm in an odd position to be challenging that because I'm at the 4-year school, but I'm not sure you can really do that. I think what happens within the context of a course, including the final exam, is a part of that course. Right. And by definition, if someone transfers in credit for that course, they have the same status as someone who has taken that course. It's assumed that they have taken your final exam and passed your final exam. That's what it means that they transfer and get credit for it, by definition. Now, if after Theory 4 you had some sort of separate diagnostic proficiency type event so that you made double sure that even though this student's passed Theory 4, we're going to make sure in a separate way that they're ready for advanced theory, then that separate diagnostic or proficiency event, yes, the transfer students would need to take that along with native students. But, think in terms of an American history course that is a prerequisite for a more advanced history course. You couldn't have students transferring in American history and history professors going, well, wait a minute, you need to take our final to see if we're going to let you take the advanced theory course. No, that's what it means to transfer a course. It means you get credit for it. And so I think we would be on it's not only challengeable, I don't think we would win a defense of a student who transferred a course and got credit for that course and then was not treated as if they had that credit for that course. I think if a student ever challenges that they would win it.
Well, but when we talk in terms of assessment for like SACS and that sort of thing, SACS even recommends that what you can do for assessment is to use the answers from questions 2, 7, 9, 12, and 13 on your final exam to prove from assessment standards that students have the basic understanding of 4-part sight reading ability or whatever it is. It's not the entire final exam which can be used for the assessment, but proving that they have the understanding of classical music history, romantic music history, 20th century music history by examples from the final exam can be used as assessment. If we're using diagnostic assessment, then we can give at least portions of that final exam as an assessment tool for anybody transferring or trying to test out of it, not even trying to transfer.
Maybe the solution is that the paragraph, if it exists in the revised field of study document, should be a little bit more flexible. That would say, that you can require a student to repeat a class if they fail a diagnostic exam, or put some caveat or exception in there that would say.
I don't know. We have that option. My see though, I see it as a difference, whether you can do it or not, a difference in history and a difference in theory. Theory is a sequential series of courses. I think anybody who's ever taught that series would realize that some years you have smart students and some years you have dumb students, let's face it. Or let's just say they don't have the background, their background meager, whatever. So you may not cover the same amount of material, even your own professor, every year in that course, because of where the student dynamics of the class. And so I think if you have a sequential series, that's different, because everybody, let's face it, everybody here probably uses, there are at least 2 different books here used for theory. I bet there are 3 or 4. And I remember, I went to Indiana University, and I remember students transferred in from Eastman and Juilliard, and they had to take their test, and they redid it. And I realized that's not Texas, and it's not 2-year to 4-year. But in a sequence like that, you have to do it. And my son is an engineer, and he just graduated. And his prof told him, yeah, you pass the AP calculus exam 1 and 2, but if you think your teacher skipped even one part of that calculus 1, you need to retake that course. And he did. And he was glad he did, because there was something not on the AP exam that he had to know. So I think you can, in your advising, suggest it. Can you require it? No, but then they're going to fail, and that's students' choice. They can choose to fail.
I'd like to jump in at this time and say that our lunch isn't getting any fresher, so we should probably take a break and grab a bite to eat, and we'll come back and resume this wonderful conversation.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Steele. I'm a program director here at the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, and I think I've probably chatted with a lot of y'all, and so it's really a pleasure to meet y'all. I'm sorry I missed the earlier part. So, and actually I still need to go back upstairs. They only let me out of the closet for a little while, and, said, hey, just get down there, let them see a face, and then get back up to the closet. And it's a Harry Potter closet, so I'm working on my spells and stuff. So. But it's truly a pleasure to meet y'all, and I really
don't blame this on us.
I'm gonna absolutely blame it on y'all. So, but if y'all need anything, going forward, as Gary mentioned this morning, feel free to contact me. I think y'all have my contact information anyways. But it's truly a pleasure to see you all, and I'm really glad that y'all were able to make it in today. Before lunch, we were discussing theory and some of the challenges that we have. And let's open the floor to continue that discussion.
Well, I was talking with some of my colleagues here about students who transfer from a community college to a four-year university midway through the 4-semester sequence. And, for example, if they've had 2 semesters of theory at the community college and they want to enroll in our 3rd semester theory, that we would give them a diagnostic. And the way the letter of this paragraph reads, we can only do that if we would also give diagnostics to our native students. However, as I was looking at this closely, the first sentence of the paragraph reads, transferring students who have completed the field of study curriculum, et cetera, et cetera. So does this apply only to community college students who have completed this field of study, or does that apply to? So if they've only completed part of the theory sequence, we can give them a diagnostic, even though we don't to our native students. Am I understanding that correctly?
I was understanding that's the way it works.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just have to flog the horse because it's a very problematic paragraph, because it says, you have to, they've completed the fields of study, they have to satisfy the competency and proficiency requirements of the receiving institution. Transferring students will not be required to repeat classes. Okay, what do you do if they don't meet the standards and you can't take the classes? I can see now we have to create Theory 5 to bring everybody up to speed before they go to advanced level theory. It almost requires us to create a new course that we can require them to take to get them up to our competencies. And you give them if you give a diagnostic test to them that you then also have to give to your native students, and they don't pass it, then what? So you still can't require them to take the classes again.
Yeah, and so you're suggesting to them that if they would like to have help passing the proficiency exam, then you can go back to the level that we suggest, or you can study on your own, but we're not creating any other courses for them.
Yeah, and certainly understand that we can do it by advising.
Yeah,
but what do you do with
advising.
that student who says no? And we get them. I've taken the class. I have a passing grade. You have to take it. I said, okay,
That's their choice.
you're on your own, because now you're going to have problems going forward.
fail.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Right, and that's, to me, we're setting up students for failure arbitrarily. When our job is to make the students succeed and to be able to do for them what they need to have done to succeed. And, if we allow them to opt out, even though,
But
we can
can't
advise
really
them.
anticipate all the variance and, in the transferring institutions and what they've learned. And so we have a standard, and then they come in and they either meet it or they don't, and we can advise them where they might go to be most successful, but then that's up to them to choose it or not.
Right.
I just wonder if we can't clear this paragraph up, we can get rid of some of these inconsistencies, because that is a direct conflict, those two things that Robert just mentioned. And so this paragraph definitely needs addressed, and I don't know what the answer is, but that paragraph is full of issues for universities and community colleges in advising and helping their students progress that we definitely need to address.
Can we just add another section? First of all, I think it's twofold. Can we say that students who do not complete the field of study at one institution must take a diagnostic to determine where their placement in the receiving institutions?
I'm wondering if the problem is the word completed, and maybe if who have either participated in or matriculated through this field of study curriculum, but I don't know that they have to have it completed.
If you look ahead in the handouts to the Texas Administrative Code page, paragraph C addresses students that do not complete the field of study but do some of the courses. It seems to imply that even if they have not completed the field of study curriculum, they still can get credit for each of the courses that the student has successfully completed. And the receiving institution is required to take those on a course-by-course basis rather than as a block in the field of study.
I just want to say, I think that any diagnostic help that transferring students receive is a very good thing. The sort of very specific issue I was trying to address earlier was what could be required as opposed to what can be advised in the strongest and most well-meaning of terms. But I don't think we can require students. I'm quite sure the statute doesn't allow us to require students to repeat a course they transfer in. I mean, it's pretty plain They have the credit for the course. We can't tell them they have to take the course again if we accepted the credit. But we certainly can tell them, based on our diagnostics, that we really don't feel like you're ready for Theory 3. We don't see any way you're going to be successful in Theory 3. We want you to be successful, and for your own good, we advise you. We advise you to do some other work, and maybe take Theory 2 here before you take Theory 3. But and I don't think that doesn't violate the statute. That's in the student's interest, but we can't require them to repeat a course that we've accepted by transfer.
Well, and it's not just music theory. If there were a diagnostic for theory, then who's to say, well, we want a diagnostic for every section of what you've done. We want a diagnostic on your performance skills. We want a diagnostic. We already have competencies on piano proficiency. You know, it doesn't seem to me that I agree with Wayne. If they've taken the credit and we say we're going to accept it, we can advise them that, hey, if you struggled, consider being placed in another class. But if they're continuing on, once it's accepted, it's accepted.
No, and that what you just talked about is exactly the way it was before this. And it was just a free-for-all, whether or not hours were going to get accepted or not accepted, and what they might take or not take. And it was a real issue for the 2 and the 4-year people through those years. And this is the reason this document came about, I think, that helped make that work a lot smoother, which has done marvelously well, I think, in the last 15 years.
I would say to a T that students who have transferred backwards, and we do receive those, when they sit down with me, I know that our theory sequence of courses is reputed to be reasonably difficult compared to some other institutions. And I always look at their transcript, and your grade in Theory 1 was not as strong as it could be. I'm not going to make you take that class, and further, I will give you credit for that class. However, I strongly suggest that you take Theory 1 again. And almost always the student says, okay, I don't want to come here and fail. I want to pass. So I know there are extreme cases, but I would say that what we're doing now is probably the idea of advising, and even though students may not always listen, at least then through advising, it's on them, and we're not crossing into any gray areas as far as the documented law.
I think one thing that sort of addresses, but it really confuses the issue for me more, is on the backside of this field of music. It says full academic credit. And if you read that, it says academic credit shall be granted on a course-to-course basis in theory, oral skills, applied music, and ensemble, and will be accepted at the credit hour by the receiving. But then it says in italics, full academic credit shall be granted on the basis of comparable courses completed, not on specific numbers of credit hours accrued. So I think that is contradictory almost to the point. So if you could show that your Theory 2 covered things that my Theory 2 didn't, then I suppose you wouldn't have to give credit for it.
But could this be for transfers from other states too? Because where we live, we have this issue where the numbers in Arkansas don't match. So this would apply for that particular circumstance.
But actually what I'm seeing here is not that you could not give credit for it, but for instance, if my student who receives 2 credits for theory is transferring to your institution that gives 3 credits for theory, that it transfers class for class and that student doesn't have to go back. He gets the credit for the 3 credits at your institution and not only 2.
That's how I see it with the difference between between the theory courses with the credit hours.
The 3, because that's where that came in, was some were doing it as 3 hours, others were doing 4. No matter which way it went, it was going to be accepted that way and given credit that way.
It almost certainly wouldn't happen because most of our students probably graduate with more than the minimum number of credits by the time they get their baccalaureate degree. But what happens if somebody transfers in only 12 total credits of theory, and I give them what would normally count for 16 for me, and they get to the end of it and they only have 116 credits. But they've completed all the coursework. I mean, like I said, that's probably not an issue we really have to worry about. But by putting this language in a statute, then theoretically we're breaking SAC's rules by graduating somebody with less than the minimum number of credits. But they've got everything that we've told them they have to have. So I'm wondering if that's problematic. I don't think it's problematic, but I wonder how we deal with that.
And I was talking, so you may have to correct me. I wasn't paying attention. Imagine that. But are you talking about the field of study document?
Yes.
Yeah, on the second page, the full academic credit paragraph, where it says it's course for course, not credit for credit.
And I would, as I said earlier, this instrument in the version that it's in, the language is more of a historical instrument, and I would refer you to statute, as was shared earlier, on 61823C, and that's where it says that a student who transfers from one institution of higher education to another, and I think that's what y'all are actually all talking about right now, is that right there. And of course, statute tells us yes, it does transfer.
Right. I'm not worried about the fact that it transfers. I'm worrying about the fact that if I'm required to accept a 3-credit total class for what I would normally count as 4, by the time we get to the end of it, if student doesn't have enough minimum credits, but they have all the courses because I've had to accept it, like I said, chances are it's not going to happen. But it's just a theoretical question.
When you get that student, call me and I'll pay for the 4-hour course. No.
That's a better solution than ours. If we have that situation and we've required 4 credits and they only got 3, they make up the 4th as an elective.
And as I joke, yes, that's what most institutions do. Quite honestly, we have this issue between community colleges a lot because in the technical courses, and the applied associate degrees, a lot of those have 3-hour versions, 4-hour versions, and sometimes even 5-hour versions. And so as you go from college to college, there's some of the large the community college districts to where this campus wants the 3-hour version and that one wants the 4-hour version, and you can't move across town. Yes, we agree. That's why we're having this conversation. But yes, generally speaking, just find a way to find the other hour, because obviously from a SAC's point of view, I think you've got to get to the 120. But
I can tell you the survey, there was nobody in the 2-year colleges that were offering it as 3 that turned in a survey. It was 100%. The ones that had 3-hour theory were in the universities, not in the 2-year. Now there might be some out there, but just as far as the ones that came in.
And, there's part of this is we know that ACGM has different allowable hours for different courses. I mean, that's in there, and I think everybody has a level of understanding. But part of this, once the field of study is adopted, I would think the community colleges would want to get on board with whatever version is in the field of study. And I think that would help a lot. Leveling, if you will, commonality, if you will, try to avoid words like standardization and stuff like that we just all, you use that word, it's like, oh my God, what are you talking about? But it's really about trying to get to that common element and somebody said it earlier, I don't remember who it was, but it's from a community college point of view, and Rick kind of spoke to this a little bit, but from a community college point of view, why would you not teach the field of study? Because the universities are required to take it, by statute. And if you read that statute, really and truly, most of it is more about the universities than it is the community colleges. But anyway, so that's, like I said, this is a conversation for y'all more than anything else about how you figure out all these issues.
For the 4-year college members that are here, what do you currently accept in terms of transfer from the community colleges? do they have to take the diagnostic, or do you already go ahead and accept what they have?
We've always required diagnostic exams in the theory stuff, but our chair has been discussing with us, because I'm a theory professor, that we need to be looking at that because of this field of study curriculum. And we have probably been in violation because we've required students to retake classes. We've never had a student challenge us on it, but so they willingly retook those classes, but we have given them diagnostic at every level. If they've completed a year or 3 semesters or 4 semesters, we only have a diagnostic exam, obviously, at the end of 4 semesters, but we give it to them no matter what level they're at, and the vast majority of time the students have to retake courses that they've already passed.
Yeah, I'm hearing this over and over again from a lot of us at four-year institutions that we give a diagnostic, and it's not. It's all because we don't want to set them up for failure. It's all we want them to succeed. I compare it to Goldilocks. This theory class is too hard. This theory class is too easy. But this theory class is just right for you. You should take it. And the problem is that they've taken something with the same name or the same number at the other institution.
I think we're with what Wayne had said earlier. We absolutely accept the academic credit, but we strongly advise that you're going to be better served if you take this or this, just because where we see you having placed on this exam, which roughly resembles our 4th semester theory exam.
I think for us the difference is the strongly advised, because at least my colleagues are not strongly advising. They work under the idea that it's required, and I think that's the problem we're having with our chair, is that he probably wants more of the strongly advised, but the theory faculty want it. No, you didn't pass the exam. You have to be in this class. But I think that again, if this paragraph were fixed a little bit, it would just help, because right now I think the paragraph is confusing and contradictory, and really that's the only thing that I would say that needs to happen, is just to clean that paragraph up so that it's absolutely clear what is required of four-year institutions in terms of theory, and that way all the theory professors out there, they have a legal document that says this is what you have to do, and they might not like it. I'm sure some of my colleagues won't, but it just seems very unclear to me.
Maybe one of the questions is who on your individual campus, all of our campuses, who actually controls the application of this. If it's the registrar, then they're going to want slightly different language than some of us who are looking at it going, oh, you had theory 4, but it was only 3 credits. Well, let's see what you know. Let's find it. I mean, we have those conversations all the time, and luckily my registrar will ask me, but I know there are some other places where a provost or a registrar or somebody else may just say, nope, letter of the law says X, we're going to do X. So and maybe we need to include that because we do have so many different campuses and ways of thinking, but maybe we need to clean it up so those of us that know this particular aspect can be a little more representative or helpful on those campuses. That's just a comment.
As I told you, my musical experience ended at about the 6th grade, right? I shared that. I guess a question as a layperson observing is, why is there so much disparity between apparently where the students are coming out of the courses? Whenever the courses in the ACGM, those are developed and reviewed by combined faculty teams. So. I mean, I may be opening a can of worms. I'll redact my question in a minute.
I think
here.
Part of that is that all of us would agree that in a 4-semester sequence of music theory, these 7 things, just for lack of a better numbers, these 7 things are covered. The problem is that Theory Book 1 covers it in this order, and Theory Book 2 covers it in this order, and I see it as different things can be covered in different semesters depending upon which instructor is teaching it.
Right. I think the difference in our professors and what they want to teach at a given time, I think our demographics make a humongous difference in what we are able to cover. And then I think specifically at the community college level, very few of us have full-time faculty in each specialty area. And so if you have adjuncts teaching anywhere in that area, regardless of what kind of supervision your department has, the quality of what's being taught could be limited because, I know Corpus Christi is a wonderful city, but all roads in there, nothing goes through there. And so it is hard for us to find qualified adjuncts, and that's what I base my full-time faculty numbers and my student-to-faculty ratio on, is that if you make me go out and find an adjunct to do this, we're not going to end up accredited. And so I think for those departments who do operate with a lot of adjuncts, it can be very difficult to maximize quality.
I think 2 points. One is, I think a lot of times it can come down to just a matter of vocabulary, the way things are referred to within an institution, within a culture of a school and that. And it may be that they know it, they just don't know it that way. That's a lot of it. And the other one is, I'll go ahead, I probably shouldn't say this, but I will. This has been recorded too, right? It's the same problem we have with our own undergraduates applying, especially in musicology and theory, to be graduate students at our own institution that can't pass our benchmarks there, and they're having the same instructors. And they have. It's just, so a lot of times I think it's just the nature of education. We're not necessarily teaching what we think we're teaching, or they're not learning what we think they're learning. And this just happens to be, in this case, with the transfer students, we really put a spotlight on it because we're worried about it, more so than our native students, I think, in some degrees.
I think that two things. I don't think that there is a set 7 things or whatever covered. I totally disagree with that. I've been in several institutions, and the things that are taught in theory classes at different institutions are different. Some schools get 20th century material in theory, some schools don't. Some schools do a lot of figured bass, some schools don't. I mean, it varies widely, and that's part of the problem, because you can take these textbooks that are this fat, and Charles knows this, and there's no way you can do it all. So some schools will choose some of it, and some schools will not. And that's a problem. The other thing is as you said, community colleges have a lot of these adjuncts who, maybe they're a piano player or something like that, who are teaching music theory and are not really current in terms of what's happening in music theory instruction. And that's really what I think contributes to this wide variance in what's coming out of different universities, because it's not... there's no easy solution for it, but that's really why we feel so important about the theory diagnostics, because we know that they're going to have gotten different things in a different way, and that preparation is essential for their success.
Which would be why I'm extremely important, an extreme proponent of you all being able to give a theory diagnostic exam, because I think in the long run, whether it's just to transfer students or to everyone, in the long run, if it's going to make for student success, I think you ought to be able to do it. That should be, their success should be our most important goal.
I have a question. If a student, I know at UTEP, to progress through the theory sequence, you need a grade of C or better in one class to take the next class. Is that true for a class to count in the field of study? Is there a minimum grade requirement?
No.
So it's possible for someone to get a D in a theory class, transfer it in, it counts for their degree.
A D doesn't transfer.
A D does not transfer?
No.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
I
Thank
think
you.
we do that institutionally, though. I know we are C or better.
I think whether or not, you can't say blanketly that it doesn't, because I know there are some of the newer 4-year schools will accept D's as transfer, and they won't, or like even in some things, even the bigger schools will. It really is a school by school basis what grade they will accept. It may even be department by department at big universities.
The D, I think, would transfer sometimes outside of a major, but not in your major field. I've never heard of anybody accepting a D in a major.
I think the fact that there is so much disparity between the schools, and I think that's one of the things that we enjoy in higher education is the fact that our individual institutions, we can deem what's best for our students. Although we're finding out in this conversation, we already knew this, but we finally have spoken about it to some extent. That's causing issues for student success, and I think that ultimately we need to talk about the fact that there's going to be gaps no matter what they're taking. Even though these are sequential, you could go back to a math course. You could go back to a student that was an elementary student, and they had one bad year with a general education specialist that didn't know how to teach math, and they went on to 4th grade, and they were missing that big sequence there. Ultimately, it's going to be up to the student working with the instructor to find ways to fix those gaps. We can't necessarily fix all the gaps. So I agree with Wayne, what you said earlier about it should just transfer, because we aren't going to be able to catch everything that might not have been taught at the lower levels.
But I think we are obligated to somehow, I think I agree with you totally, Kathy, but they need to be aware, though, that it might impact their future success and be made aware that way.
I do agree with that.
Whether that's another course or whether it's...
Strong advising is definitely good, but ultimately, to go back to your flogging of the horse, if they decide that that's not what they want to do, then that, as Marilyn said, is their decision to fail or to find other options to help remedy that situation beyond repeating that course, perhaps.
It sounds like that folks are agreeing that 4 semesters of theory are part of that component. We haven't even backed it back to the basic part of that. Because we can look at this and decide, hey, we're not going to do that, or yes, we are. We can do something different. Not that I'm throwing out suggestions, but we keep talking about the same things, but we have not even agreed that we would look at theory levels 1, 2, 3, and 4, because it's not specific in here. It just says 4 semesters of theory, and we imply that it's levels 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not music theory 1, you got to see, you did it again to get a better foundation, so you took it a second time. That's 2 semesters. So it's not even clarified in the document.
But it's the same class.
It is the same class. But the wording, I would like to make it more clear. I just think that we should.
Well,
and specify, levels 1, 2, 3, 4. If we're looking at, yes, we will do, we haven't even come to agreement on that. We've talked about the pros and the cons of it. We need to decide. It doesn't have to be today, but, think about, do we want to accept the 4 semesters of theory?
I would agree with you, because for those of us who do 4 hours, we still come in at 12 with just 3 semesters, theory 1 through 3. So I would agree with you on specifying 1 through 4. If that made sense.
Yeah, and
that would still be 3 semesters and not 4, and this does say 4 semesters, so that kind of covers that number issue.
well, just getting back to the boilerplate idea, what would the students anywhere do their first 4 semesters, and they would certainly be taking theory and oral skills their first 4 semesters. For me, that's just a given in the field of study degree. That's just it's unarguable that you would have 4 semesters of theory and oral skills, however many variances they may be on that.
I agree.
Do any of the 2-year colleges teach a basic fundamentals and then teach music theories 1, 2, and 3 and not theory 4?
Well, then they would not come in at the level of preparation of the native 2-year student who had completed Theory 4 and who is now then, at least on paper, ready to go to structure and analysis, or orchestration, or what have you. So if the idea is to try to mirror, to some extent, what's going on in the 4-year schools in the community college, and I think it has to be 4 semesters of theory and oral skills.
My outsider's view, since I've only been around for 4 years now, and I think Philip's surveys kind of support this, is that community colleges see the field of study as, for lack of a better term, as some sort of protection. For our students, in that they will get credit for these classes should they take them and be successful in them. And it helps us feel like we have a direction, and I can't imagine, unless you have some sort of recording technology or some sort of workforce music degree in your curriculum, what the deviation would be and why it would be opposed, because this is so just fundamental to what the four-year colleges do.
And I think a large part of our conversation has been the difficulty of ambiguous language in the document. Our understanding is that somebody who's starting their junior year will have completed theories 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'd speak very strongly in favor of saying we want the equivalent of theories 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the field of study, because the assumption is that they're complete with the cycle and ready to start as juniors. If that's clear, then there can't be, well, gosh, what do we do if somebody took Theory 1 twice, or whether it's 4 hours or 3 hours. It's very clear what the intent is, and that specificity of language is really helpful.
Is it preferable for four-year colleges to have the new students come in and have done the 4 music theory segments and the 4 oral skill segments? Or could it be okay to have the 4 music theory segments and only 1 year of oral skills? Or does it make a difference?
Well, I'm not a four-year college, but it makes a huge enough difference to me that we will not allow our students to go to Theory 3 without having completed Oral 2. And furthermore, we will not allow them to do anything at the 2 level until both the 1s are passed. I just think that our students get too separated in those 2 issues and those 2 classes that were meant to support one another. And so I think it's very important that they complete them at about the same time.
And we've also taken an extra step with that, is that the Theory 1 and the oral skill classes and through the other numbers are co-requisites. They have to take them together. They cannot, and I was just checking my email just now. I'm trying to register for theory. I don't want to take your training. Well, too bad, so sad. You have to, because they can't register. It's set up in the system that they have to register for them. Not only that, they have to put them in a special area and click, so that they cannot take one without the other. Because we knew they'd try to worm around that if they could.
I appreciate all of this, and I guess that's what we're doing like everybody else. But as we're having this discussion about having difficulties with new students in music theory 1 and 2, sometimes I wonder if wouldn't it be beneficial to some of them to have 1 year theory without having to worry about oral training, and then get in basic oral skills the second year. That's all I'm saying. That might be beneficial for some of them. We will be struggling the first year anyway. I'm not sure if the double duty of doing oral training helps them right away.
And I suppose there are institutions, maybe I'm the only one, where we don't separate the theory and the oral skills. It's one course. They're all covered, 3 credits, 5 days a week. So when we're looking at transfers from schools that do separate them, the Theory 1 credit, we're looking for both on the transcript to fill our 1 class credit.
Well, I think ultimately, if we're talking about student success, and especially at the community college level, where I have seen the most success with students, and ultimately if they come in for field of study, they're wanting to transfer to a 4-year institution, and to have that be successful, the schools that are most successful at that are mirroring what's going on in the first 2 years at a 4-year university. So I think that's an important thing to consider. I had another point, and I'll come back to it in a minute.
Does any university teach oral skills as a separate class from the theory? I mean, and count it as so you could progress to level 2 and still be in remedial level 1 year training?
We teach our classes separately, but they're concurrent. You can't get ahead or behind in one section or another. You have to be at the same level. We don't allow you to proceed on with your training unless you've passed theory as well, or vice versa.
We're the same way, but that's fairly recent. we actually, for quite a few years, you could advance in the oral skills class and beyond where you were in theory, but they're more coordinated now, and it's exactly as Darren said.
So the 12 minimum credit hours for theory and oral skills, that means that some schools would teach 4 semesters of a combined class. Is that correct? So it'd be 3 credit hours a semester, which includes oral training and music theory. Some people do that.
Yeah. My institution has a hybrid. In the freshman year, theory and oral skills are combined together 5 days a week in a 3-hour course each semester. So that's 6 hours over the year. In the sophomore year, they're separated out, I think for historical reasons, but 3-hour theory class each semester plus a 2-hour oral skills class. So it ends up at 16, but basically 6 plus 10 over the course of the first 2 years.
Okay. As I reach for the microphone and everyone looks, the issue, and this is what Darren is reiterating about the problem with this paragraph. The administrative code reads in part, as long as those requirements not duplicate course content. So if the content of our Theory 2 is different than the content of the Theory 2 that the student took somewhere else, wouldn't that allow us to have them repeat a class called Theory 2 if we can document that the content is different?
And what rule are you reading?
On the Texas Administrative Code, Title 19, Part 1, etc., the last sentence of paragraph C, the sentence begins, following receipt of credit for those courses, student may not be required to satisfy remaining course requirements, field of study of the receiving institution, or to complete additional requirements, etc., as long as those requirements do not duplicate course content. And we've been talking about it in terms of the course number or name.
Right. And yes, statute and rule allows that there can be other lower level division requirements if it's part of the degree. Now, if it's has the same name and that kind of stuff, as you said, if you can demonstrate and document it, you're probably okay. To speak to UT where you have 16 hours and the discussion here is closer to 12 or something, I would think, yes, you could require another lower level elective in there to round up to 16 to get to your number. But it's almost the same conversation if you go back and start trying to modify paragraph C, if you will, that says it's a course-by-course transfer basis. And that's what the field of study is really and truly about. If the committee votes and agrees that theory 1 through 4 is theory 1 through 4, then I almost wonder, if everybody else says this is theory 1 through 4, then it's why is your theory 2 different? And is that course perhaps should be another name? Maybe. I'm not telling you to change the name of your course, but that's all I'm talking about. Is if everybody else seems to have this level of commonality, why does yours not fit? And is there a way to do some kind of modification that makes the field of study work and you still do what you want to do? And as I say that, y'all, I'm certainly not encouraging the universities to try to find a way to circumvent all the courses, but yes, you can still have other requirements. And I think Rex even spoke to this when he was talking about how many hours there are at the lower division level. Yes, you can have another course, but, as we've discussed, it's really about let's see if we can't get past our differences, if you will, and find out a way to help students be successful.
Let me give a pragmatic maybe half answer to that most of us at least may understand. To when the 4-year schools had to get down from 130 or 135, whatever it was, like 8-9 years ago, but to still meet NASM, National Association of Schools and Music requirements for counterpoint. A lot of our counterpoint classes were rolled into Theory 4. And so Theory 4 on some of our campuses may include 18th century counterpoint, but it may be a separate course some other places, probably an upper level course. So if we accept Theory 4 and we have counterpoint but you don't, am I really being fair, and am I meeting national accrediting standards? I mean, because we're trying to answer so many different accrediting bodies making everything work. That's one of the reasons why every Theory 4 class may not be the exact same Theory 4, even though it is ACGM. And some of it's pick some other alphabet letters and put them together, and that's who we have to answer to.
Exactly, and then there are 2 institutions there that are guilty of not meeting NASM, and not many, I will say, not many of us as community colleges are accredited. However, those of us that are ought to be concerned about that.
But at the same time, NASM doesn't say you have to put it in a single class or in whatever. You just have to have this proficiency, and you have to be able to prove that our students get counterpoint. But you can do it 18,000 different ways.
But if we are transferring students to you all, and it is your expectation that that has been covered, because when you cut to so many hours, you had to remove that course, then it's unfair to our students and unfair to you that our students may or may not be prepared.
You know, a couple of comments. You know, first of all, I think I said this, and if not, I think we've implied it. You know, obviously, we knew that if we knew this was easy, we would have done it. You know, when we punted this to y'all, we knew this was a challenging conversation. You know, I mean, it's not easy. And then this committee can make recommendations to the ACGM committee about the courses. And I don't know when the last time the music courses were reviewed, but if standards have changed and there are things that should be included in the courses, that certainly can be a conversation, because, I mean, it's about trying to help the students find a guided pathway. That's kind of the big buzzword in literature right now, but trying to find the pathway or the sequence of courses to graduate as quickly as possible. To, you know, this earlier when y'all were discussing that students are hanging around for 3 years, well, obviously, as a state, that's costing money. You know, and I mean, we can have that conversation, yeah, but they're learning, and you know, but anyway, that's probably not the appropriate conversation for this committee right now. But the conversation is, you know, can you get these students out in 4 years, with 2 years at a community college and 2 years at a university? And well, can you? Gary, it's kind of like the student that has only 116 hours. But if we don't talk about these things in theory, and we were talking about on break, the average hours to associate degree in Texas right now is somewhere around 95 hours, give or take a little bit. It changes from year to year, and I haven't looked it up recently. That's a very big number. And of course, there are factors that have been discussed that, because of the students having that many hours and then transferring to the university and also taking hours at the university, then they run out of financial aid. And I would not be... I think at least theoretically we would all agree there's got to be a student in this state somewhere that has 150 hours towards their degree and likes a couple of courses and can't afford to pay out-of-state tuition and probably hasn't graduated. And of course, if we could find them and reach out to them, I think all of your institutions, at least the universities, probably have some method of help that you could help get them graduated. But if the student doesn't know to ask that question, you know, then they're sitting there without their degree. But anyway.
You kind of touched on something at the first part of your comment there, though, that David really illustrated is, unfortunately, this degree reduction happened so impactfully. Everybody did it in kind of sequestered, and so we've arrived at these completely different places. So finding commonalities is going to be probably a bigger challenge than everything else we've talked about to this point.
I know that's one of the reasons that we've stuck with the 3-hour combined theory curriculum. To keep 12 hours of theory in the degree so that we would have 4 hours someplace else to meet the standards that NASM sets for us. So it's just a different solution to the same problem.
And my point came back around to me. I was wanting to address Marc-Andre as far as the role of community colleges. And I hate to say this because it's not something that we like to talk about, the fact that we have students that come in that really probably aren't as prepared as they should be to have a music career. They come to community college for that reason. And it's possible we may need to say this is not the right career path for you.
Unfortunately, in the spirit of open enrollment, that's not a subject area that my college finds itself able to do. And believe me, I would love to have that conversation with our students, because I think therein lies some of the issue in having community college students who have 95 hours, is because it's kind of like Baskin Robbins. Let's try this today, and next semester, because we flunked out of this, we're going to go do that. And I would love to be able to tell students that, no, you're not prepared for this, because I think it's in their best interest that we say that. But in the spirit of open enrollment, we cannot.
But I think as we go along, and you were talking about guided pathways, I think a lot of institutions are starting to explore that, especially at the community college level, to where as students come in, perhaps on the advising level, they'll have a better idea of whether or not they'll be successful in the track they're looking at.
With our audition for MUAP status, for music major status, I've had that conversation with students when they've had their third audition and they didn't pass it to reach music major status. So yeah, we do have that conversation.
And it's unfortunate. I don't think all the institutions are having that conversation. I think that's a great model, and I think that therein lies the problem in some of the hours that we're talking about, is some people just not wanting to be firm or not able to be firm with some of the students that are coming in, that just we all frankly know are not going to make it as music majors, and that does a disservice to the whole music industry.
No, it is hurtful to the students who are very serious, I think. But I do think I think it's coming for us. I think it started, we have a very large student enrollment department, and so holistic advising is starting there, and it will trickle down to the departments, but for whatever reason, the structure, it has to start there. So I think we'll get it, but I would imagine it may be another couple of years.
But I also think it's important to consider that House Bill 5 is already here in the high school level, and that other institutions are going to look at adopting these kind of guided pathways, because that's going to play into what this field of study, I think, will look like, or at least we need to have that on our radar screen while we're talking about this.
I did have one question about what David was alluding to, and that was about Counterpoint being rolled into Theory 4. How many of the senior institutions are currently teaching Theory 4 with Counterpoint rolled in? I'd like to know that.
We are not.
Sorry I brought that.
We actually have Counterpoint in Theory 1, so that's one of the new textbooks out there by that some of you may be using. The Musician's Guide puts it very early. So,
and y'all, a conversation in this agency. I mean, our jobs here are really visioning about what does Texas look like in the future. What does higher ed look like in the future? I don't know if y'all are aware. The board at the last meeting adopted the strategic plan for education that carries us to 2030, and then our job is to help get there. To help get the state there, which means help get y'all there, right? Not that you couldn't do it without us, perhaps, but anyway. And I talked about this committee and working over a period of years, and while we did the terms and that kind of stuff, and and I also said that I know this is a challenging conversation, but almost if you could fast forward 3 years from now or 4 years from now, if we really put our thinking hats on and tried to find the ways to make as many reasonable, rational accommodations for the students as we can. I'm not talking about lowering the rigor or anything, but is there a way that everybody could find a way, perhaps the community college adding something else in a course that I've already suggested, universities, could you accept this like this and then add that? Or incorporate this one learning outcome in another course. But if we could have those conversations over time, and then 3 or 4 years down the road, we've been doing that for a period of time, I wonder what our conversations might sound like. And I point that out because I really and truly think we can get there. I think the challenge is we're on square one right now today. And, but that's kind of where we come at this, and that's why we talk about these things more as a long term. And you don't have to you don't have to solve this today, but these conversations, ultimately you got to try to find a way to address them, resolve them, and figure out how do you help students transfer and be successful. And we know it's hard, as I've said several times.
A couple years ago, I was taking my middle daughter around to various colleges to investigate, where she would like to go. And at one of those colleges, there was a room, a whole auditorium full of parents with their children. And one of the questions that was asked of us, how many of you sitting in this room are doing what you went to school for your major? And I think there were about 5 of us that raised our hand. To me, the community college especially is a place that should have some flexibility so that students have the opportunity to try to find what they really want to do with their life. If we try to make things so cookie cutter that our pathway, I agree with the pathway ideology, but if the pathway becomes so rigid that there's not flexibility and looking at other things that might be of interest to them, then I think we're doing students a disservice. And I think that's an important role that community colleges have. We start limiting number of credits, and yes, there's a high end that gets out of control, of course, but I've got many student success stories where they've started out in one area and then they ended up, whether it was in music or whether they started out in music and now they're in other areas and now they're really successful. And it was some of the music classes that helped them actually to be successful in other areas. So my point is, I think we need to, when we're looking at all this, and I think this goes back to Philip's comment, that we have to be thinking about allowing some flexibility. If we get it to be so regimented that we don't have flexibility, we're actually taking opportunities away from our students, and we're negatively affecting success.
I agree with everything you're saying because I think it's very important that we still, in all of this, produce well-rounded students, which is not always the aim at the community college. We're all about career preparedness. But I believe that our document is for our music majors, and I would say that there is a large percentage of my students who intend to major in music and who do so somewhat successfully. And so I think it behooves us to take care of what we're called to do here today has directly to do with the music major. Now, what we do with curriculum at our institutions is our business as leaders and department chairs. But what we're here to do today, I think as community colleges, we're here to help our students matriculate successfully to four-year institutions through this document, and we're here to help our four-year institutions and those colleges our students are going to go to and receive degrees from, to help them have that seamless transfer with our students so that they have to worry about educating our students and getting them out of their college. And so I don't know that building in flexibility, I think our core did that. And so I think that will be taken care of for people who are directed into music. But I don't think that we, through this document, have the number of credit hours to worry about how flexible we're being. I mean, I really don't. I wish that we did, because I agree with you. But I think for music majors that it's a very specialized field that requires a number of credit hours that we're not able to give them.
My issue with the flexibility issue, and I'm totally for this, is that we can't possibly build every one of our theory classes, 1, 2, 3, and 4, to fit everybody's four-year model. because his is going to be different than Tex, than West Texas. So all we can do is as best we can. I guess I'm back to the question is, this has been in place for 15 years now. I've had it in our institution since day one. I haven't known that there's been any real issues with it. Is there, it sounds like we're beating something up that's hasn't been an issue, and maybe some wording, like we talked about, might need to be looked at and maybe changed to make it clearer. But I'm not sure there's been some real big problems.
And Philip, maybe that's partly because whereas this, which is trying to make all 2-year schools fit with all 4-year schools, which ain't going to happen. I mean, let's face it. But what's probably happened more casually is you have found and learned what institutions your students are most likely to go to, what they require, so you tailor-make the experience to fit that mold. And maybe that's the path we need to.
If I can,
I don't know you can institutionalize that.
If I can say anything, I think about if you on your. This is a minimum requirement. It's the commonality. If we sat down as a group from scratch and said, what by the time people get through a sequence of 4 semesters of music, what things can we agree that they need to know? Darren may say, oh, they need this too, and whoever's teaching it at Tech may say, no, they don't need that, they need this. If we can find those areas that are common, and there will be those, I mean, everybody will agree that they have to know their note names and how to build triads. I mean, in 7th chords, that's going to be uniform. Those are the things that should come out of those theory classes. And I think we want diversity. I know that my dean is over also the humanities, and she says, I want my English faculty to all teach slightly differently. It's just we have to have these same outcomes at the end of the semester. Where we get there is maybe a different path within each one. If you have 2 people teaching Theory 1 at your school, if you're big enough to have that luxury, some students are going to do better with one faculty than they do with the other. The diversity is built in, but I think what we have to do is find the commonality and say this is the basic that they need. And I don't know that we want to say that this is the basic, everybody will have a different sequence. I think what we have to do is leave it like it is and say it's got a lot of variability in there, and we just have to muddle through with it. It's a messy job. And say, okay, we need theories 1 and oral skills 1 through 4. And here's what it is. And we have to accept the fact that you're going to teach it differently than I do because you value different things than I value.
I agree with you.
I agree with what everybody said. I think what's listed there, those 5 areas, if you count theory and oral skills as separate, those 5 areas are absolutely foundational to 2 years or 3 years or however long it takes people to get through it. It would be nice to have where we need the flexibility is not on our desks, but the desks of a non-musician accepting some work towards a keyboard competency as also one of the foundations, be that a VA office for financial reasons or a registrar for counting exact hours. I mean, every one of us has something like that. Some of it, but it was probably written like this. I wasn't on the committee in 2000, but it was probably written like this because we had these exact same problems. Some places had a credit, some people didn't, so we just left it like this. But that's left it open to too much interpretation in too many separate offices on each campus. And then that same thing with the competencies and proficiencies. If we can somehow write in diversity and allowances that don't require somebody to either give a test or not give a test, that would be the best thing. But in terms of the actual number of credits or those 5 specific skills, I don't think any of us disagree that those are vastly important and should certainly be in there. I think we're parsing words about some of the other things more than anything else.
So what I'm hearing you say is that everything that's listed here, number of semesters and number of credits, we are okay and should leave as is.
I am absolutely okay with that statement. I don't know that the credits are quite as important as the number of semesters, and then again making sure that it's not theory 1-1-1-2. And again, I don't know exactly how we say that, because somebody may teach comprehensive musicianship 1 through 4, and some registrar is going to see theory 1 through 4 say, I'm sorry, you haven't taken comprehensive musicianship, you don't count. I mean, that's the sort of thing we need to guard against when we write this.
Okay, so it would be an relatively easy thing to rewrite the table and list specific courses that would be for consideration within these categories.
Right, and again, it sounds like the coordinating board folks are actually going to do the actual writing of it. So, I mean, maybe we could make suggestions of classes that normally count for theory include theory, oral skills, ear training, comprehensive musicianship, and we can give some sort of list like that. Is that how it would end up looking?
Well, how it ends up looking, as I said, is really kind of up to y'all. I think, yes, from a student point of view, more of listing the courses, but I mean, we can, obviously I think I need more guidance than what I have right now, or more understanding of what that would look like. But yes, we can make a stab at some kind of document prior to the next time this group gets together, and let you then take a stab at it and decide if it's correct or not correct, and exactly what it needs to be. There seems to be a lot of conversation that I've heard today of that sequencing is very important, and that so perhaps we would try to encapsulate that in the document. I'm not saying a degree plan out of a catalog page or something, but somehow or another trying to say that it seems to me I've heard that theory 1 through 4 have to be taken, and you can't pass. If you don't pass 1, you don't go to 2, and so forth. And then there's other courses that are in parallel with that or something. But I would need a whole lot of help from y'all. But I certainly can get Elizabeth and or others to start mocking up a document of what it looks like, and we can take that. Yes.
Can I just say, I earlier looked at the field of study when we were talking about sequential courses to find another field of study that also had sequential courses. Computer science is one. And they have listed their computer science field of study curriculum. They have the course content and then the prefix and number listed in the course name. It may just be a model, something we can work from to kind of come up with. I mean, it sounds like it's along the same lines. And then the other interesting thing that they did here was that they listed specific universities that either did or didn't do some of these things. I think that gets probably a little more prescriptive than what we've talked about. But, it kind of takes us out of our box, though, to look at ways other people have addressed fields of studies and other sequential areas.
I was going to say, instead of listing names of courses, just say 4 distinct courses or 4 consecutive courses or something to get rid of the names and the titles to solve the comprehensive musicianship sort of thing.
We were instructed in the latest version of the ACGM to retitle all of our classes to follow exactly what was in the ACGM. Where we used to have ear training and sight singing, it says sight singing and ear training or whatever, and we had to do it exactly as was in the ACGM. One thing I wanted to bring up about piano was prior to this latest decrease in the degree from 66 down to 60, we actually taught a class called Keyboard Skills, which was MUSI 1114, 15, 2114, 2115. And our students then took class piano, 1181, 1182, and then went into lessons. So we kind of double dipped them with piano. When we decreased, what had happened was Keyboard Skills moved out of the theory sequence. So we were at that time doing 16 hours of theory, 2 for written theory, 1 ear training, 1 keyboard. And then these classes were moved out of Keyboard Skills and they became titled Piano for Music Majors. And that's when they went out of the degree. In other words, if we were able to, what we did was we combined music literature lessons and keyboard skills into Piano for Music Majors. So we have some literature and some skills involved in both in each of these classes. But if this were able to go back into the theory group and still encompass the same content, it would count toward the degree. We wouldn't have this problem of who's going to count 4 semesters of piano and not.
Well, I find the piano issue just a little bit less troublesome than maybe the theory issue, because pretty much to a T, every four-year institution in this room is saying that they give a piano barrier to their students, to their native students. And so then to give it to the transferring students becomes very fair. However, they can't do that with their theory, or they don't do that with their theory classes because they expect that their students have sat through their theory classes and are finding that, you know, maybe they don't need to give that barrier, but how do they know with the transfer students? So piano is a little bit less troublesome for me, although I do, you know, I understand concerns because we are getting into that area of 60 versus 66 and how do we fit it all in. But I feel comfortable that we're doing what we need to do with piano, although I'd like to see it included in the field of study. I know that that would cause some problems for some institutions in the room, and I really don't want to cause anybody any problems.
We do the theory proficiency also at our university, so it works just as well as the piano, and I don't know if anybody else does that too. We have the theory proficiency.
So gleaning from our discussion today, most of what we are seeing as problematic is the wording in some of the paragraphs. So are there those of you who I have no idea of what the vision is for our next meeting as with regards to when that might happen?
I've got some dates that
okay.
We have reserved this room for some dates, basically near the end of October and the 1st of November, and just share those with you, I guess. And we can then go back and look at other dates if these don't work. But we have Friday the 23rd of October. You know, she sent me the 27th of October. I guess that's a Tuesday. You know, she sent me T, and I was thinking Thursday. I guess Tuesday and Thursday. We'll start with T. But anyway, Friday the 6th, and then I guess the 10th, which would also be a Tuesday, is when this room, or at least, you know, a reasonable amount of time out, and the room was available. And we always try to understand that, you know, the week of Thanksgiving probably doesn't work, nor does the first couple of weeks of December work because of finals and that kind of stuff. So but we can discuss other dates as well if those don't work. But
I would certainly, for those of you who are, and I think we are all struggling with the wording, but if you have some serious concerns about wording, if you would want to take on the idea of bringing something to the table at the next meeting that might solve some of that wording, and looking at solutions. There's nothing to be said that we can't have subcommittees of this group of people that would bring back something that we could resolve. And we have each other's emails in a list in your packet, so it would be reasonably easy to be in touch between now and the next meeting and to draw up something that might be helpful. And I can certainly participate in any or all of the above.
I would prefer Tuesdays over Fridays, but I'm good for whatever day. I don't know exactly the pros and cons for others.
I agree. I would prefer Tuesday over Fridays.
Mm-hmm. It seems to me that scheduling is really easily done via Doodle on email. And that can save us a lot of time. It's just my thought. And I'd be glad to work on wording if needed.
And yes, we can set up a doodle poll with these dates and try to get it out before the end of the week, possibly even this afternoon or tomorrow. But we'll get it out as quickly as we can. I guess perhaps as we do a doodle poll, do these dates seem to kind of work? I mean, or do we need to go look at other dates? Because I mean, I think other dates would probably become more problematic. But okay.
I don't know if it involves any other people.
There were several voice people here too. 6 and 10 are going to run right through Nats. Not that bothers me particularly, but off the record.
Well, let's run the doodle poll and see if we can get a majority. Technically we need 13 for a quorum, but we would prefer to have a majority because of the nature of this work. Obviously we're glad we have almost everybody represented today. As I think I said and Rex said, thank you for taking time in your schedules to participate in this conversation. But it would be very challenging, I think, for this group to work with perhaps only 13 people in attendance or some number like that. So let's run the doodle poll and get the results of that, and then we'll see if we need to discuss other dates.
So other than Melinda, is there anyone who would like to look at some of these paragraphs that are very ill-worded and make some suggestions so that when we come back next time we have some things that are really going to be meaningful to add or subtract from our field of study?
I'm glad to do that.
Okay, Robert, thank you.
I'll just make one suggestion to throw in with the idea of looking at rewording this document is that if we were talking about significant rewording, sort of to make it read better for a young student, maybe what we need is a companion document. I've read this many, many times, and anything that's sort of legal reads like it is, and is carefully worded, every sentence. And I think this is like that, and I think it covers a lot of bases really well. I think there's a certain genius to it because what's required is required, and then there's a lot that's in prose, and it's in so. But as far as just comprehending it and interpreting it, not exactly an executive summary, but a student summary or something like that, a companion document might be a better way to go than to tweak the wording too much on
I
this
think
one.
it may be we need a companion document for non-music registrar people who are in the transfer. I think that is probably where the breakdown is more. It's for those non-music people who are trying to interpret it.
There are also two paragraphs, I think, that are rather conflicting in nature, just the way they're stated. I think the point is there, but for instance, on the back under full academic credit, if you read the first two sentences, actually there's only two sentences, but it does say that academic credit shall be granted for a course on a course basis. And it should be, but there is someplace else in the document, maybe not right here, but there is someplace else in the document that talks about having the knowledge and demonstrating the concepts. And so are we going to give them automatic credit because it says we shall, or we are going to, but then it talks about demonstrating the knowledge, and so do we give it if they demonstrate the knowledge, or do we give it anyway even though they don't, because we don't feel that we have that leeway. And so I think it's those kinds of, I'm not trying to really reword as much as clean up some things that seem to be contradictory.
One other thing that will happen. One other thing that has to be changed would be the general education courses underneath that had listed 31 to 39 hours. With this number reduction has to definitely get changed.
Last paragraph, there's a statement about 66 semester credit hours, which is going to have to be changed.
Those last two paragraphs are going to have to definitely get changed numbers.
Well, and as Rex said, that we can blame it on Rex. That's why I said Rex said. But 66 may not necessarily be off the table if there really are 66 lower division courses, lower division hours that truly do transfer, and the conversation about the inverted nature of the core and all those kind of things, if it fits, So I mean, that was discussed earlier this morning. So I mean, yes, but there could be possibly another number besides 60.
I have a question about that. and being at a 2-year school, I may not understand. My understanding was, though, for a 4-year school, though, to give a degree, that they had to have, isn't there a certain number of hours, upper division hours, they have to have from that institution?
Yeah.
Or is it half the hours of the degree?
It's not half.
It's, and they have the room, because as discussed, many of the, well, in theory they have the room. Since I don't know other degrees 100% off the top of my head, I didn't read those last night. I was going to, but not really. But if there is a number that is more than 60 and it really is the correct number for students, then that can be a conversation.
We are mandated that we can only accept 66 transfer credits, though, from a 2-year school. Isn't that a correct statement?
I don't know.
I've been held to that by various registrars before. That may be interpretive and rather than mandated.
I don't know if you were.
Unless it's just changed. It was 66 hours, not counting kinesiology, and up to 4 hours of kinesiology.
As a statutory limitation?
That brings up a question that I've always been. Yeah, most universities, I tell my people that 66 used to be 66 to 72 maybe would be the maximum that would transfer to a university. We know good well that a lot of our students end up with more hours than that and more ensembles and all of this stuff. I've always wondered what happens to those, because my suggestion is, okay, throw out 8 of those ensembles. When they transfer. If they're coming to you and they've got 72 and you only want 60, and 8 of them or 10 of them are extra ensemble hours, can you just take them off the plate? Or how does that work on the university end?
They still show up on a transcript somewhere, but credit towards degree, we would only accept a maximum of, whether it's statutory or not, we would only accept 66 hours. And if that means if we end up kicking out most of the ensembles, they may have to take 1 or 2 more ensembles with us than other. Usually the things that we make sure that are credited are the core and the lower division, what we call music core, and those classes.
And those hours do count toward the 120 and the 30-hour rule regardless.
That's right. So they can't just go away.
No, they're still on their record. Yeah.
Here when they go to the
So when they get to that 149th hour, they're wishing they could have done that, but no. Doesn't
But
work like that.
developmentals don't count, right? Toward that. Developmentals don't count.
No, not developmentals.
That's what I thought.
So as we move into prepare, I think, for future meetings, because we seem to be dwindling down to a point where we're kind of done and maybe done here about 35 to 40 minutes early, which might be a good thing today. What I'm foreseeing is that we would be able to discuss possibly specific classes, but try to be as open-ended as humanly possible. In our discussion of courses that are actually going to be required in the field of study, those that would actually need, by law transfer, should the student complete them successfully. We might want to discuss and streamline the idea of our core, and if that plays, whether or not that plays into our field of study or our nature of transfer. And other courses, for instance, piano. We have also brought up something today about counterpoint and where that is, or if we do a separate course, or does that course fit in for the lower division, or does it need to remain upper division? And even to the extent of, although music literature is a part of the field of study, is there any change? Do we just leave it the way we are doing it at the moment? So the outliers that we can discuss as well, and any possible rewording that should occur within the document, and how we want to go about maybe writing a partner document for various populations.
Cindy, I'd like to propose, I noticed we got some information on SharePoint on here, that we use our SharePoint site, and perhaps do we have to go through administrators to upload to that though? Or do we have access to upload? We're getting everybody set up. Everyone will be set up.
Yes, everybody on the committee will be set up.
Going back to Marilyn's point about finding commonality, it might be good to at least upload what our different programs are that we offer so we can see what we're looking at, and we might find areas right off the bat where we can see that there's a large agreement there, as well as some of the documents that we're talking about as far as changing text. It might be a good way to access it.
Yeah, I don't know, again, if this is appropriate, but is it within, it seems like a lot of the problems we're having on this stem from the fact that, again, this course reduction thing has put all of our four-year institutions on a very varied field, whereas I bet if you look before those course reductions, it was far less than that right now. We're trying to address this with the two-year schools so it works. Should we also be addressing the problem from the other aspect of it, and should there be steps made to making those more uniform or at least aware of opportunities there?
Are you asking me if I think it's a good idea that all the universities in the state of Texas kind of get together?
Well, no, I know what not to ask as far as that far, but at least an awareness. There doesn't even seem to be a very clear awareness. I mean, it's like David was talking, unless you take the time to do the research on your own, to go into it, that we should, just so we understand the options, because most of us, our options are limited, again, by people who know nothing about what we do. They're just taking, words at their face value, and we have to live by their interpretation of that.
Well,
we're fighting a lot of little Don Quixote-ish battles all over the state.
Well, right, and we were kick it back over to our co-chairs a little bit and blame it on them. But we were chatting when we were on break a little bit, kind of about this bigger conversation of, this is it was discussed that this is the only time that the universities and the community colleges have ever really got together and discussed curriculum, which kind of speaks back to my point of if we can get this group as it morphs over the years to engage in a prolonged conversation. What would that look like in a period of years down the road, whereas we're on square one today? I think some of those issues ultimately would be addressed, could be addressed is perhaps the way I should say it, because it would require a compromise by the various institutions of saying, well, yeah, I see that you do it this way and I do it that way. And it's kind of amazing to me if you think about it, how unique education is from institution to institution, and I understand institutional culture and a bunch of stuff. I was a faculty member for over 10 years before I came here to the dark side, but things evolve because of the way they evolve. But then look at so many industries where there are standards because there have to be standards, and I know we don't like the word standards, but maybe we do need some more.
Well, and what upsets me, and this is more before I was in an administrative role where I'm at now, is using the coordinating board as the justification for why it has to be that way when you look at another institution doing it completely different, who supposedly is under the regulation of the same coordinating board.
Well, and for us to act upon it, quite honestly, we don't have any statutory authority that says, all you universities have to adopt the same courses or anything. Community colleges, we have the ACGM, we have the WECM course inventories. Somebody said earlier about to where collectively, and I don't know if you university folks know this or not, but the ACGM and the WECM are really and truly the courses that are fundable for the community colleges, and then the 60-hour limitation pretty much puts them in a box. Now there are some other types of courses that are possible, but that kind of encapsulates them, whereas the universities don't quite have that box that they have to live with, and so. Yes, you have the 120-hour degree limitation unless there's an issue. And then, of course, the universities are more faced with the 150-hour issue than the community college are. But quite honestly, as we're hearing, I hope the community colleges at the table are understanding, wow, when we let those students take more courses, we may be impeding them from graduating or costing them more money at least. So it is a shared conversation, I think, is my point.
Anybody who wants to come to the TAMS conference, January 28th through 30th of 2016, is more than welcome to. We actually do have some of these conversations. Usually they happen in 2-year and 4-year private and 4-year public, but there are certainly times when we get together and we do have at least microcosms of what we're doing around this table now. So that's invitation to everybody.
Keith, make a plug for TMEA too.
And then I had one more thing I wanted to ask about that. I don't know if it's the thing, but you kind of mentioned something right at the beginning, and this is just something that bugs the heck out of me, and I've had a long conversation with Doug Dempster at UT about this too, is why would the new creative arts requirement in the core, is the one commonality between all the coursework that there's no creativity? They're all survey courses.
Each institution develops their own core. There's not a Texas core, as y'all know. I mean, y'all name your core courses, right? But
Well, no. We were told it has to be 3-hour lecture course.
Exactly. It cannot be hands-on and producing works of art. It needs to be studying and analyzing. And I, for one, was enough of a chicken that I sat back and watched our art department pose every student, draw up an application for every studio art class that is taught on our campus, and watched those be rejected. So why would I want to ask at that point in time about private lessons or ensembles, which are part and parcel to what we do as musicians and what people should know about music? I think that was the disturbing feature for me.
I agree with all that, but let me just point out that there are ways to get around that, and you can address the teamwork issue. I've seen many instructors go in and have hands-on and group work components that will provide creative elements. So I guess it just kind of depends on the instructor and how they approach it too.
It comes down to the instructor's got the gumption to find out a way to show the outcomes in the course that you can do it and you'll stand by it. But it also takes a real strong administrator to back you up that the next person teaching in your shoes has to do the same thing. So.
yeah, y'all can adjourn if you're done. If that's the
I
question.
do have a couple of things.
Oh, okay.
It does on our agenda, just so that we've covered all points, talk about resources required for the next meeting. So you have some dates that you are going to doodle us about, and we'll have this room and any resources that provides. Does anyone see anything that we don't have today that would be helpful other than documents that we will probably post on sites so that we all have access? But does anybody see any other resources that we might need for the next meeting that might be helpful?
Elizabeth, do you have an idea when the SharePoint information might be sent out to us?
I will. I've been on vacation.
Sure.
I will check today, tomorrow morning with the IT guy. He has all your information, all your names and your email addresses. So he was just going to be working on it this week.
Okay, so maybe look for it by next week.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Right, and so what we'll do is when we send out the doodle poll, I'll try to let y'all know whether or not the SharePoint stuff is ready for your all's access.
Great, thank you.
Also, timeline for completion of our charge. Do we have, is that going to be coming from the coordinating board, or do we?
No, we just wanted to put that as an agenda item to perhaps at least get you thinking about that and decide, do you want to come to Austin weekly for a year or 2 years or no, seriously, we just wanted to shape that. We obviously want to try to get this done, and I think I kind of spoke to this a little bit at the beginning of have some initial meetings, and then ultimately the work of this committee will be presented to the board. It'll be the board's decision to adopt it, which that's kind of a conversation for later once we get that on that road. But really to kind of challenge y'all of, can you get this done in 2 minutes, 2 meetings, 3 minutes, meetings, 4 minutes, 4 many meetings, I can't talk, or do you want to drag this on for 4 years, which we certainly, as much as we like y'all coming here and having this conversation, we hope that we do get some kind of instrument, and then we have a process for reviewing it over time, is why that was there. But we didn't anticipate an answer from that today.
So with those items covered, is there a motion that we adjourn this meeting?
I would make that motion, but I do want to make one point to David's about TAMS. We do have a listserv, which connects all of our colleges and universities for survey questions, or if, hey, somebody wants to throw something out there, let me know, because I kind of have control of that a little bit. So certainly that would be a way, too, if we need to get some information about something pertaining to this. And I do move that we adjourn.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. See y'all later.
Thank all of y'all for coming today and starting this conversation.